Hey guys.
Hello everyone.
Just getting started here. Oh, it's the microphone. That's an important piece. I'll probably want to hear as well. Just bear with this, guys. You're seeing the behind the scenes look of getting set up. Eugene making the fire and
Yeah, just put more kindling. Just so everyone knows, we've had so much rain that much of Mctiernan is flooding. And it's hard to find dry wood.
can everybody hear us okay? How is the volume? Colleen, Charlie, you want to speak to
Hello, hello.
everybody here?
It's
Everybody.
always easy to hear Charlie.
Hello, hello.
Hi, everyone. We love you. Yeah, it's a different view each time. We like to spice it up.
Well, we moved the party upstairs.
Great.
This patio is not quite finished yet, but it's
Audio
getting there.
is good. Okay, so I will not be in the chat today. Colleen will be checking it a little bit every here and there, but we'll do our best to keep an eye on it. If there's are there any moderators in here just to keep an eye on things, it would be appreciated.
Yeah, we don't like those bots. Nasty little bots.
Like President Biden bought.
We don't like them.
He's funny.
Yeah, but he's not harmless. So,
Assuming he's an actor.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, good
actor
thing.
Biden.
Good thing it's a movie because things just keep getting worse in Afghanistan every second.
S. Coop says you need mods.
Yeah, who wants to be a mod?
Scoop.
Hi, Paisley, groovy people. So great to see you guys.
Groovy's a very apropos term for tonight's show.
Paisley says, love you, groovy people. Amy 33, Ken, PCG, Terry, Maria.
Hi, Amy.
Christine, S. Coop. If you need help, I'm here.
Great. All right, Scoop, thank you.
Thank you so much, Scoop.
Christine says, anyone want to ask about Mr. Poole? Yes, we do want to ask. Colleen, you doesn't, oh, yeah. I'm feeling better.
Hi, Christine.
Not 100%, but better.
How about, did you want to, while we're waiting, Cole, do you want to speak to the video you saw in Australia today? I know nothing about it. You might know a little bit more. You showed it to me, so.
Justin,
Oh yeah, the video.
Justin's on that.
Oh,
sent the video.
he's going to show it? Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like the Australians are not rolling over.
Right? It's so exciting to see. Like, I just had tears in my eyes when I was watching them. It lifted my heart so much, and they busted through the police line. I was like, yes.
No fear.
I was so excited, and I wish I'd been there. I wish I could have been there to help bust through that police line. I was so ready for it.
I think smoke in my eyes enough rather than the pepper spray.
Yeah.
Spraying all
We're
over.
so proud of you guys, Debbie. We're so proud.
Yeah, y'all check out
all of
this.
Yeah.
you people in Australia in the front lines right now. We're just rooting for you. We got your back. We're here. And we wish we were there.
Yeah.
And see what they did? They helped people who were getting grabbed by the police, and no one was trying to hurt anybody, but just,
The police were.
well, the police were, yeah, but just taking a stand, saying enough's enough. You know,
So
you,
we're so proud of you guys. Thank you so much for everybody who's holding the line and who's out there doing their thing. 'Cause we need it. We need that inspiration as well. So we're very proud of you.
Yeah, it's so true. Mr. Hyperbaric said he was there today. Thank you so much for being there. And, you know, for Christine, Amanda, and others that have been leading the way tirelessly day after day, sharing the truth.
Debbie and
Yeah, Debbie as well, just your warriors. And so much of the fire that is being developed is because of all of the wonderful work that you're doing to make it so obvious what's going on. And I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again, those police officers that have continually broken God's law, there's no safety behind, I was just doing my job. That bullshit only washes with the cabal. It doesn't wash with us.
that's right. Those police should be in jail and hopefully they will be, regardless of how long it is, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or a month or longer. They all need to feel the price for what they're doing by holding the corporations, the corporations,
Supreme.
over the people. We,
Yeah.
the people, and they're one of us.
And you.
Shame on you,
You
Mr.
swore,
Policeman.
you swore oaths to us, and you defend these corporations that would snuff your life out in a second if it suited them.
Yeah.
That's what you do for fake monopoly money. So
You're on the wrong
you're-
side right now.
you're going to prison, and you're gonna go to prison for a lengthy period of time. And what happens in there is entirely up to you. And when you come out on the other side, we'll see. We'll see. But when you sell out mankind, you're a Canaanite, and you got a lot of atonement to attend to.
yeah, I mean, it's there's no such thing as shirking. I mean, this is all about coming into responsibility, right? So
Exactly.
we can't shirk responsibility. If my actions, regardless of who told me to do what, it doesn't matter. If my actions were wrong, then I have to pay the price.
Yep.
And this is how it's always been, but we've just been under the duress of this cabal who does everything in their power to try and manipulate the laws of karma, to shed the responsibility as much as possible, to dilute it as best they can. But you can't do it. You can only delay it. You can only delay the consequences. You can't push it away. So these consequences have just been building up. They've just been building up to this point where it's like, okay, well, you're going to reap what you sow. Everything that we do comes back to us. It's perfectly balanced. There's no justice is absolutely here. It's built into the system, and it has to be.
Yeah. And moving forward, we have more of a say than we think. So in the past, we didn't, but in the future, we all need to take more responsibility for what goes on in our reality. So moving forward, I think we all need to think about that and how we all as a, as a group as a community, as an earthwide nation, we need to have more input into what goes on around us. So moving forward, I guess we can have a meeting sometime. and decide what it is we need to do.
The thing that I find staggering, and I think a lot of these policy officers for corporations will, when it finally sinks into them, I think that they'll be shocked and disappointed in themselves as well. What you need to wrap your minds around is this, is that for the longest time, you have been anti-God, anti-Jesus Christ, anti-Mary Magdalene, anti-Virgin Mother Mary. You are anti creation and what is right. You have been wrong for the longest time. And when that seeps in, there's only one adjective, there's only one noun that can be used to describe what you've been, and it's satanic. And at the end of the day, you have to wrap your minds around the fact that for whatever reason, you were purely satanic.
You were unbalanced.
Yeah.
We were, and yeah, and when we know better, we had to do better. So now we're doing better. And those of us who don't know yet, soon enough. Soon enough.
Yeah, and if we continue to sort of apply our gaze across this beautiful earth, you're not seeing military getting into any trouble, are you? Anyone notice that? You're seeing policy officers and policy forces getting themselves into the worst kinds of trouble, and you're not seeing wars anywhere, and you're not seeing military in virtually anywhere get themselves into any trouble. Because as we discussed a long time ago, they took their oath for something far, far higher than a paycheck. And they're the ones that were willing to lay their lives down on the line. And what that does is it gives you backbone. And I think that's the biggest thing that's missing with policy officers, is as corporate stooges, where's your spine? Where's your backbone? Because you've capitulated, and you have to live with that. So at the end of the day, we'll all be here waiting, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, off that note, I'm sure the military is acting as the balancer right now, the scales of justice.
Yeah, there are undercover good guys everywhere. The amount of just like in DC on January 6th, there are so many undercover good guys making sure that things don't get out of hand. So, yeah. This movie's kind of a big deal.
It is, and it's escalating, and just like they promised us, right? Each day was going to be a little bit more and a little bit more, and
Crescendo.
yeah.
We want the bull from Durham. We want the bull from Durham. Come on.
So I saw somebody say today that, I think it was Negatives channel talking, was it Negatives channel? Talking about Bull Durham. Was he even real? Is he a character of JFK? And I'm pretty sure he might be.
Yeah, all those little Telegram comedic pieces with the gentleman who sort of looked like the images accredited to John Durham, and he made so much fun and light of the fact that that he was ready to come out any second, and he was the bull and he was the Punisher and stuff. So that's a calm, and they're saying that very likely, of course, it's not necessarily what you think it is. However, don't discount the fact that the Punisher is very real, because there has to be, and this is straight from Q, there has to be punishment meted out to those that have punished children. women,
Wow.
children, and the elderly. So there
There's,
is a punisher. Don't kid yourself. And like I've always tried to play upon, because I saw it from the beginning, it's an allegory, right? So it's the Durham bull, and this is Taurus coming out of Aries. And as we discussed on the Sky Clock show, when you do the work, when you go into the tomb in the Capricorn, you choose the corn, which is the flowering of the pineal gland, and you go in for 3 days and 3 nights, then you're cleansed and gifted truth in Aquarius, and then you're then gifted wisdom through the 2 fish of Pisces, and then you rise upon the level in Aries to become the raging bull of righteousness, coming out of Aries. And then that raging bull finds its twin or mate and balances itself in Cancer, and that's the top of the hour. And then we start again. 1 o'clock is Leo, father. 2 o'clock is B, Virgin Mary, mother. And 3 o'clock upon the level, once again, is born free, mankind. So I think it's always been very, very symbolic. But hold on, because there are so many convergent lines now, and the narratives are so ramped up. Just look at the Afghanistan situation. It's a clusterfuck, and everybody is powerfully calling for Biden's resignation. You've heard that key word, haven't you? You've heard resignation a lot. There's a reason why these certain words are used again and again and again to put that thought out there. So, yeah.
how any of this logistically can work, because ever since JFK, who's still the president, and none of these are all just fake. None of these presidents have ever been really a president. So,
Well, you could even say going back to when the United States Corporation was founded. No,
That's right.
Nothing has been legitimate from that
Right.
sense. And then you take it a step further, that there is no government that is legitimate in God's eyes to have authority over another. So
That's right.
as soon as that starts to take hold, then
and we say we don't
it
recognize any of
becomes
these.
illegitimate.
And there is no more we the people.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
But you look at that American Constitution, and I agree 100-fold. Some of the things that were said by -48 and others about sort of who was behind it. That is a very, very divine document. And it's the American Constitution is the Constitution, is sort of the building blocks for every other area that wants to form themselves again in any kind of nation state. That's the building blocks, and it's very righteous. And the American Constitution in its purest form is living, breathing, and you can see that it was meant to grow and develop in a righteous way over time. And if you take a look on your own about the American Constitution, what you find is the deeper you go, the more power, ultimate power, rests with the individual. This is why this division of power between the state and federal level, and then with the executive branches at the federal level and the state level, there's enormous checks and balances. And the reason being is that the ultimate power always rests with we the people. So I think it is a divine creation. And
Now-
I think there's a lot of hope in it.
Now they're telling people to stay away from Washington tomorrow. Is
For
tomorrow the 18th?
Today is the 18th.
Today's the 18th?
Yeah, they were fencing in the Capitol again, right? I think.
Right.
That's yeah, I've seen some reports.
More
about that.
upside down rain.
Yeah, because there was some word going around about a rally or a gathering or something in DC this weekend, but that seems to be fake. I haven't seen any news about today, so I don't know if
I was
anything-
like, are they gonna blow it up and they just want people to stay away?
yeah,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
Yeah, not yet.
I hope they play the Beethoven thing.
Wasn't that's Tchaikovsky. That's Tchaikovsky. That is what is that? That's the 1812. Yeah, the 1812 March. But anyways, that's Tchaikovsky. Yeah, a very, very beautiful, famous, righteous piece of music. So, and if you haven't watched V for Vendetta, and you haven't watched The Matrix lately, watch them.
Because it's happening right now.
So with all of that, welcome to the show, and a huge thank you to everyone for all your loving comments and thoughts, always, and all your work to be part of the truth and to tirelessly share the truth. We appreciate it very, very much, and it's always our pleasure to be with you. It's we do have a very special family, and it is so much fun for us. So we mean that very sincerely. So makes these shows very, very special. And tonight's show is going to be very cool. And I was pleased to see. Did you mention it earlier? But I was pleased to see that Negative 48 put up on his Telegram channel. Put up the our podcast on the truth about the Freemasons.
Earthquake and all.
Yeah. Oh, does that have the earthquake in it? Okay. Wow.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that one.
So that's really nice to see. It's just so important that all of you understand that there are these righteous groups that have been literally destroyed, whether it be literally or figuratively, allegorically, but they've been destroyed by the Cabal. And then you see that they all have the same things in common. And then it's interesting bedfellows, isn't it? Because as you start to go through this with, the Freemasons that go all the way back to the Knights Templar, and by the way, even in the truth community, if you mention the name Knights Templar, they're calling you a Satanist for trying to suggest that the Knights Templar were anything but evil. It's incredible. And of course, the hippies, that's just that was just stupid drugs and sex and greasy hair, dirty hippies. And then that takes us all the way to Adolf Hitler and Germany, and it just goes on and on and on. And you begin to see these odd bedfellows that find themselves on the wrong side of the Cabal. And if you're on the wrong side of the Cabal, you're a hero. You're an absolute hero. Because they don't take down the righteous ones. They take down the evil ones. It's like the Hollywood director John McTiernan, who did I think a couple of the Die Hard movies, and geez, he did. Honestly, just go to IMDb, John McTiernan, you'll see all of the very major Q-ish movies that he was doing. He did Predator with Arnold and Jesse Ventura, Mike Lindell. He did that as well. He did so many of these key movies. Predator, once again, is another movie you need to rewatch and take a hard look at, because this is the hunted turning the tables on the hunters and making the hunters the hunted. And this is the Hunt for Red October. Oh, and John McTiernan directed the Hunt for Red October. So, and that is another very, very key.
Have you guys seen it?
Haven't, no.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, one of the better
You're in for
movies
You're
that
in
was,
for a good one too.
yeah,
It's on the list.
Uh-huh.
one of the better movies that ever came out of the 80s was the Hunt for Red October.
I think you'll enjoy it.
And that's John McTiernan as well. Now, really quickly with John McTiernan is that as John McTiernan was on a Hollywood set filming, I can't remember the name of the movie, but what became very apparent to John McTiernan is that he was being spied on. And in many instances, they were making it very obvious. So, but he was finding audio and video devices. There were strange people on the set. And eventually McTiernan got to a point where he hired a private agency who were really good with audio, video, and they did a constant sweep daily over the movie set to ensure that any of these listening or video devices were spotted and were removed. And also there were a lot of strange people that were on the set that no one really could account for. And they were also hired to remove these people who had no purpose being on the set. So eventually McTiernan has a conversation with this group that he hired, and he said, I'd like to find out what these bastards are up to and what they're saying and thinking. Is it possible for you to be able to bug them? And so these are the production offices on Hollywood. And so the group said, yes, it is possible for us to do. And he gave them the green light to go ahead and do this. And long story short, it's that this particular group sold McTiernan out, made Hollywood production facilities aware this is what McTiernan was planning to do, or obviously they had done. And then long and short of it is John McTiernan went to jail. And so if you want to know one of the few good guys in Hollywood, it's John McTiernan. And so now you need to go to IMDb and just take a look at the movies that he directed and he produced and he put his heart and soul into. And you need to take a hard look at those movies, because if you're part of the Minions, they don't do that. They don't do that to you.
It's so exciting now to realize that there was a group, and unbeknownst to us, there was a white hat group working in Hollywood, or maybe just on the outskirts of Hollywood, making movies and making some really good movies.
Yeah,
putting
that's
lots
right.
of comms in them too. And
yeah,
you know, in hindsight, I wish I'd known, but at the same time, I guess I'm really happy that we know now.
Well, you did know, you knew as
You knew you liked the
far-
movies, and
That's
you know,
it for a reason, right? And then
Yeah.
you pick certain things out of those movies, and then those are those
and they
key-
must give you, like, it's that little hope, that seed, that mustard seed, right? That probably implants itself inside of your heart, and then you don't know why, but there's some optimism there, and you're like, but you know,
There's an element of resonance, like it rings true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is truth in it. And
so that all along the way, they were aiding us.
Yeah, casting white spells to combat, to
That's
counter
right,
the dark
that's right.
spells.
Yeah.
that were
Thank you,
constantly
all of
know.
you who were doing that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And I'll just reiterate again, I no matter what, because I heard Colleen was playing something on Negative 48's channel. I heard Sabrina Gal make some just you know, and that could all just be part of the narrative for now, for protection. So I don't want to put Arnold in any danger, but I am absolutely not convinced that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a bad guy at all. I think there's no way in the world, I know the Kennedy family as well as anyone who's not a Kennedy could possibly know. And the Kennedy sisters were so righteous, and Eunice Shriver Kennedy was just an amazing woman. And Maria Shriver is not dark, but she was a friend of Oprah. This is a movie. This is the operation of operations to take down the evil of evil. This is biblical. This is taking down the Canaanites. This is arresting and bringing to justice Cain, who slew and then ate Abel. This is huge. So you play roles, and whom can the Q team trust? If Q is indeed, as we're now learning, is ultimately JFK, and that's JFK 27, who is the 35th president, then you ask those closest to you that you can trust to go undercover. You ask those to befriend the Oprah Winfreys of the world, and you keep tabs, and you find things out, and you observe, and there's no way in the world that the Kennedys would put that beautiful girl, Maria Shriver, at risk of Arnold Schwarzenegger was a monster. And just the things that Schwarzenegger, the movies that he's done, the things that Schwarzenegger has talked about, learning more about his family history and stuff, and then just trusting your intuition and trusting any calms or feelings that come from God. It all points me that Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver were both playing very, very
They
powerful
publicly
roles.
made a big deal about Arnold Schwarzenegger's issues with his sexuality.
And
being
the
a very
maid,
high,
that's right.
a very high
They don't-
sexual person. And
Yeah.
even on Oprah, I remember seeing Maria talk about, how he had a very high sex drive. And I wonder if that in itself was maybe part of his role. I'm saying
Absolutely,
maybe.
because those things
Right.
keep you alive against the cabal. Schwarzenegger is and always has been a very, very public person and a very talked about public person. So you have to keep him safe by having these certain things come along. And then the thing that I always see with Schwarzenegger is that he has that inner strength to have his name besmirched and be totally okay with it, because he's part of something far bigger, far, far, far more important. You just look at Robert Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr., and look at the role that they've asked him to play, which he's hated by both sides, hated by the asleep zombies, hated by the cabal, hated by truthers, hated by everyone. And that beautiful man who's just taken the middle road. Nobody wants to identify with the middle road. So there are those people that are prepared to take the weight of the world upon their shoulders for something, a bigger cause, a higher purpose. And I think that there's a lot of them that have done it. And like I say,
Talk about throwing your ego to the side. Right?
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Which kind of reminds me of Frodo. I mean, this is the whole Sun Tzu thing. You have to go so close to them that they don't even know that you're that close, or else how do you achieve the end goal? I mean, this is the whole Sun Tzu thing. So
it is.
keep your friends
Keep your
closer
friends close,
and
but your enemies closer.
That's wow. Wow.
So, if I'm wrong, I have no intel at all about Schwarzenegger, but my sweet spot, that sweet spot, that sweet intuition tells me 100%. I have zero doubts inside. So we'll see how it plays out.
I'm not as sure as you, but I sure hope you're right.
And that also brings me to, I don't know which verse it was, but it was saying like the pain you're feeling now is so small compared to the rewards that are coming later.
I saw
Yeah.
that one
I don't know
today.
which verse it was though, but that was so
It's
relevant.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's for everyone right now.
Yeah.
That's the detox, right?
Mhm.
Right.
But yeah, and those of us who have hungered for the truth earlier on have decided to go through the more painful experiences a little bit ahead of time, so that we're more prepared for this next period as we transition. And when those who have chosen to not look at the truth at all and to stay as far away from it as possible will be experienced the most painful moment of their life. And that's for us to step into our role of facilitating this transition, helping to make that happen. The Q team, the White Hats, this movie has done so much to prepare us for this. But at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility and step forward and say, you know what, like, I've got to do my part. I've got to play my role and acknowledge my part in this movie as well, which is to be the local support, and it's different for every single person, depending on who your community is and where you come from and who's in contact with. So I always tell people who find it to be a lonely path and that there's no one near me who's awakened to the truth. I can't talk about this with anybody in person. All my relationships are online. But when you look at it from a bigger perspective, you're in the perfect spot, because God has placed each of us strategically all over the space and spread us out exactly where we need to be, so that when the moment comes, we're right where we need to be to help be that beacon, be that life raft for people to reach out and grab a hold of. So yeah, just get ready for that, and because our role, we've been preparing for this for a while.
And probably most of us, our whole lives have led us to these moments.
I think God's been preparing all of us exactly
Yeah.
in that way. Someone was saying in the chat here about Robert Kennedy's voice chakra. And we talked about that earlier, Charlie and I was saying, wouldn't it be interesting if Robert Kennedy didn't have a health issue, and that actually it was part of his role in playing that part, that he has that issue. Because if I'm thinking, if there's med beds and everybody else has been using them, you wouldn't think that Kennedy would be ill for that long and no cure. But
we feel it pretty strong inside. So again, we'll see how that plays out. But we do feel that pretty strong inside. Yeah,
because he has been playing a role, and he's been doing
Massive.
a very important role.
massive.
And thank you for that.
And here comes Sun Tzu again. You
Right?
gotta act with when
There,
you're strong.
there you go.
Exactly.
And on what subject matter has RFK, his junior in his entire life, weighted in on? The jab, and this
His
is the thing, the
entire
truth,
work.
the truth community hates him because he says, I'm in favor of a jab. But what does Robert Kennedy say? If it's proven to work, if there are no side effects, and if it is free for anyone to choose to have and not forced upon anybody. So who could argue with that?
No,
If there's a divine scientist that connected through Jesus Christ to God and found some beautiful strand in nature and created that into some beautiful divine vaccine, I'm not opposed to. I don't think that we would ever need to have anything like that, but again, for the righteous purpose of the righteous reason. So all you ever had to do is just listen to what Robert Kennedy Jr. was saying, but people don't want to listen. They just want to judge. And that's a shame, because you've heaped pain and suffering upon such a selfless, beautiful soul. And you're going to see a very small group of families have played the predominant roles in this, and they've been all in because they know they can trust them.
When you describe voluntarism very well, and that's the way that we need to shift our relationship with government and any of these experts and people and professions and whatever else. Is if anyone's going to be able to have any sort of say in what no one can make anyone do anything, but it should be so good that people want to take it or want to use it or want to utilize, want to pay into the system. Government shouldn't force people to pay taxes, but their services should be so beautiful and so harmonious and so encouraging that everyone wants to contribute to it. It's this, and it probably wouldn't even be called government, but this organization structure, that's the voluntary approach where
Well, we can put in a vote for what we'll call it, and it'll be.
Yeah, no, but thanks, sweetie pie. But what Justin is saying is just so brilliant. And, you can apply this to anything and everything. To watch Shoeless Joe Jackson play baseball is a gift, because Shoeless Joe to baseball is like an eagle to the wind in the sky. I mean, it's hand in glove. And when you watched Wayne Gretzky play ice hockey, or Mario Lemieux play ice hockey, I mean, it's poetry in motion. It is absolutely poetry in motion. And when you just watch these and if they never had a chance to do these things, then the world would be a lesser place. But here's the thing. This system of a meretricious system and a system of what Justin is saying of voluntarism, is creating this environment of patrons is just so just and righteous. So moving forward, I don't want to see, I am not advocating the end of baseball. I know why baseball was created. Baseball was created as a physical game to keep you connected to God and keep you in the temple. You're between the dugouts. You're between the two temples when you're playing the game of baseball. It's divine and it's beautiful. It's and Abner Doubleday, I'll guarantee you, is a Freemason, and that is a Freemason creation, is baseball. I just don't want to see the organization of baseball. I don't want to see the organization of government. That's Satan. That's satanic. The Democratic Party is satanic. So much of the Republican Party is satanic. And then over time, they squeeze the life out of anyone virtuous, so that it is just ghosts haunting these halls because of these organizations. So what turns baseball evil is the hands of man. But I don't want to see that beautiful game taken away. And again, some of these just brilliant expressions within the game. I mean, it would be a travesty if they didn't connect to these sports and to play these games. But here's the kicker: play them for free. Play them for the love of the game. And then you know what? And then in the off season, tour the country and let everyone show you how much they love and appreciate you. And there's your salary. That's your reward. And it is far greater than any amount of fajillion, babillion, mammillion fake monopoly monies that you could ever have. It's real. It's real. This is what the sports is supposed to be. It's a pastime. It's pastime. It's pastime. It's pastoral. And that's where we have to get back to, as Joni Mitchell said, and we're going to segue into the show here in a sec. I mean, we are stardust. We are golden. And we have to get ourselves back to the garden. And, you know, playing baseball at Fenway Park is fun. It's fun because Fenway Park is weird and different and quirky and it's fun. But let everyone in for free, okay? And everyone plays for free. And then you come out so far ahead in the long run because as a selfless individual giving your genius talent back as
You can have donations.
absolutely, that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. You just visit your fan base in the off season and just backpack a tour across this country, and you're richer than you could possibly imagine in every way, in every single way.
Well, and that's that shift that we talk about of becoming a creditor, because as soon as you acknowledge that you have abundance and you are a creditor, and that everything that I do, I'm driven by passion, fueled with this understanding that I am abundant, then there is no lack. I don't need to charge anyone for anything. And I truly know that I will be taken care of regardless of what I do. And we all shift to this creditor mindset so that we show our appreciation to those who are exuding their passions that happen to align with our passions. And then it just continues to build this creative experience where we all get to funnel our attention, which is the only currency in reality. Our intent is the only thing that actually matters. We funnel this intent, this attention into what continues to propel mankind and create even more abundantly. And it just continues to build and build and build.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's why Jesus said, you will do greater things than I, because as soon as we step onto this path and we acknowledge that we are children of God, we acknowledge our Christed light, then everything that we do is just an amalgamation of just building, getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and more brilliant, and it just gets better and better and better. So let's play that game. It sounds a lot of fun.
What stunts that is, I mean, that's what I was thinking when Charlie was talking, was all the money drivenness, right?
Mhm.
Like it's
Right.
always, and that's why we have terms like sellout. And that's what's ruining like sports, because people are so fickle and unloyal and
That's right.
Driven by the material, by money instead of passion. We have
Yeah.
to be driven by passion.
Yeah, who created the concept of free agency in professional sports? A lawyer for the Cabal, a Satanist, a vampire, a raper and consumer of children. Absolutely. And it is destroyed these beautiful pastoral games. It has destroyed all of them, this free agency. And then, like Eugene just described perfectly, it turns them all into disloyal pimps that pimp themselves for the highest possible donor and put on different costume after different costume after different costume just for the sake of more money. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So,
So
you know, the great thing about Field of Dreams and you know, being and connecting it to Shoeless Joe Jackson. So once again, like I said, odd bedfellows. It's funny how the conversation is working, right? Because now we brought Shoeless Joe Jackson and what is it, the 1907 Chicago White Sox. So they're connected to Adolf Hitler in Germany, and they're connected to Abraham Lincoln, and they're connected to the hippies, and they're connected to all these groups that have been attacked by the cabal. So if the narrative out of history is that the 1907 Chicago White Sox attempted to throw the World Series and then they were all kicked out of baseball, then what is the truth? They wouldn't be bought off, and these disgusting fake Jews said, we're going to skin you alive. I'm going to burn the heart out of you. And then that's what they did. So Joe Jackson, Shoeless Joe, during the World Series that the White Sox ended up losing, Shoeless Joe hit almost 500. I think he hit for the series 444. Led all hitters in extra base hits, so home runs, triples, and doubles. And his glove in the field was as legendary as always. And he was trying to throw. They threw Shoeless Joe. Why do you think for Field of Dreams they chose Shoeless Joe? How do you know that this is a white hat production? Because they're showing you all those who wouldn't give in to these monsters and who paid horrible prices for standing up for God, for standing up for us, for standing up for mankind for what is right. That's what Shoeless Joe did. And that's why Shoeless Joe is immortalized on the big screen in A Field of Dreams. And when he comes back and he sees the field and he smells the grass and he smells his glove, what does he say? He said, shoot, I'd have played for food money. And then he you know, kicks it around a little bit. And about 30 seconds later, he said, shoot, I'd have played for nothing.
Ha.
It's the love of the game.
For
It's the love of the game, and it's for the love of life. And that's why we're here playing this game, for the love of life.
Kevin Costner. And let me just say, we dropped that one about John Mctiernan and how Mctiernan clearly is a white hat and a good guy for what the cabal did to him. How and these movies are key comms and signals put out ahead of time. And if Jesse Ventura is in Predator, and Predator is a huge deal because this is the hunters becoming the hunted, there's no way that they would have Schwarzenegger play the lead in that movie if he was eating children. There's no way. There's no way. Not in that key role. Not in that key role in that movie, which I'll bet you anything. Pretty soon somebody makes a comment about it and encourages us to see it. Again, they made a big deal last year in the fall, right about this time. They made a big deal with the hunt of Red October. That was everywhere. Remember? That's John Mctiernan. Predator is John Mctiernan. There's no way they would put Schwarzenegger in that role if he was a demon. There's no way. So the title for the show tonight is The Truth About the 1960s and those dirty hippies. And the truth about the 1960s is that it's the battleground. And I want everyone here to jump in with this because you probably have never heard this before, but it's true. The real battleground for World War III was fought in the late 50s and through the 1960s. Why do you think the 1960s was so violent? Why do you see the 60s as everywhere you saw on the streets of the cities of the United States and on the fields of so many foreign countries? Why was it a battleground? Because this was the cabal pressing, full court press to take full control. Their plan was to dumb us down and turn us into zombies for the 5G. Remember, they planned, that's all, they don't create anything. Once they get a plan, that's their plan forever. And they plan out well in advance. So these plans have been lingering forever. So they've been all in with this plan to dumb us down. What did the freaks in the 50s represent? Enlightenment. What did the hippies in the 60s represent? Freedom, enlightenment,
and also back to nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Hence dirty.
Hence this was a rising that the cabal could not foresee and had to kill. And that's why ultimately, eventually, when I have time, one of the books that I'm really passionate about writing is called The Assassination of the 1960s. And don't kid yourselves, it was an assassination.
It absolutely was. And they had a connection to each other as well. We were connected. Obviously peace and love and all of that. But the back to nature thing, it's like recognizing that we're all one. And they had to completely take that away from us. And they had to make it violent.
Yeah. And what gets lost a lot with the hippies is, you know what was number one?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets lost, but is family.
Oh.
Family came first, and they built communal families along the lines of what is naturally taking place within our FreakSense family is naturally taking place, but they built communal families. The hippies were all about family. You can't have that. That is the number one enemy to the cabal. The whole purpose of their evil plan was to get everyone competing against everyone else in the workforce so that everyone was in competition with everyone else. Husbands and wives, men and women, everyone was against everyone else. So now, who's the first victim of this assassination of enlightenment, of family, of truth, of kindness, of brilliance, of genius, of talent, of merit? Who's the first? John F. Kennedy. And they were absolutely shocked when this skinny kid, who was a senator for 8 years from the state of Massachusetts, became president. And then suddenly he started to fill out during his presidency. Because if you watch some of the campaigning that John Kennedy did leading up to the 1960 November election, it's shocking to see how sort of gangly and thin John Fitzgerald Kennedy was as he was running for president. And he was a kid in so many ways, but he was so wise and he was so intelligent in so many ways. And it scared the shit out of them. And that's why they did the Bay of Pigs right off the bat to put him on his heels and to put a black mark against his presidency right away. And remember, John Kennedy had no knowing as to what was literally almost nothing about the planning. And then when it started to play out, he was lied to about what the operation was when he gave partial support for it. They lied to him about the whole thing. And what did John Kennedy do? What would a kind man, mankind do? He accepted full responsibility. He said, I am the commander in chief of this government. It is my responsibility what happens of this government. Therefore, I take full responsibility for this fiasco that is the Bay of Pigs. That's what the highest high does. That's what
So
a kind man
there
does.
had to have been already a group of white hats working. The Q team had to have been operational at that point. And in order for everything to have played out the way we've been given some information, right? Just that JFK maybe and the whole thing never really happened. It was not going down the way they said it did. With
The assassination,
of
the
JFK.
assassination, yeah. It didn't
And
happen.
if they actually John Galted him, that means that there had to be a well-established Q team already. And so can you imagine, like, that just gives me goosebumps thinking about it right now, because I was devastated thinking that those poor boys in the White House were sitting there looking at each other going, holy shit, this is way bigger than us and they're gonna get us. And
Yeah.
they did. And then you're just sitting there going, no, like this can't happen. But to now think back and go, wow, okay, so there was a team around them and they were already feeling like this is what they had to do. That just empowers me right now, just thinking, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, in a sense, there has always been a Q team.
Right.
There's always been.
We
the
love
White
you,
Hats.
Q.
This is the eternal battle in this duality. Is there's always, if there's that much evil, those who have chosen the left-hand path consciously, then
God was not sleeping. He
No,
was always out
No,
there
and
working.
the Essenes and the Gnostics and the Knights Templar and the
Right,
Freemasons
right.
were not sleeping either. That's
Mhm.
the point. That's what Justin is saying. Continue, Justin.
yeah, and so it's always been the struggle. There has been an imbalance. Like at times there have been times where it's been leeway one way or another.
The
and-
art of war, right, has
Yeah.
always been playing itself out because
Right. And so that's what so all these organizations who have been righteous have always been there. But it's just played out differently at different times. We have just experienced the past 100 some odd years where it's been the lowest of the low, as dark as it could possibly get, as far left as we have ever been before, just to springboard back and to go all the way back the other direction. And that's what we're about to do.
it opens your eyes to think about how asleep we all were to all of this and all of the things that were really actually taking place. It's humbling to know how asleep we were and how intricate this whole plan has been. And here we are in 2021 and we're about to see the finale.
When I think that perspective is really helpful to remember so that we have compassion for those who are still asleep.
It's embarrassing. It's
is.
embarrassing to myself just to think about how asleep and dead to the knowledge and truth of what was really happening
Right.
all around me.
So that internal struggle, that internal conversation, that internal shame is going to be happening on a grand scale. So we who have this perspective already should not add any of that shame whatsoever. So we have to hold on to that humility and that resolve when things do start to happen. Do not resort to the "I told you so." Do not resort.
It's
to,
humbling, isn't it?
Yeah, and as tempting as that might be,
Yeah.
but that is
Ego wants to say.
that is our ego
You
trying
idiots.
to reach out and grab us again. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you think you're on the right path,
Yeah.
but let me steer you
Yeah.
to the left once again and get you to rub it in people's faces. And so we need to remember that as we go through this, because that will inevitably make this experience for yourself and for those around you more uncomfortable. So just remember that it's important.
And yeah, that goes to show that, like the wealth of spirit or the wealth of mind, because the poverty of spirit or the poverty of mind is like what you were describing just a second ago. And yeah, and that's why they had to target the hippies so much, because they had a wealth of knowledge, and they knew what they knew, and they had to rip them down. And that's why like movies like Lord of the Rings were going all-time high sales, because people were subscribing to the truth, and they had to rip that away. So
yeah, that's exactly right. We'll get into that tonight as well. But what I wanted to just say, Colleen was just saying, about it's humbling to see for ourselves how much we didn't see and stuff. But there's a difference that needs to be expressed here. You do your best with what you have, and that's called, it is what it is. And so if you've been on the right hand side of things, if you've always been a trier, but it's hard to build a device to take down the Cabal when you don't even know your real name, and you don't know any truth in your life, because they've hijacked you from the moment that they birthed you as a submarine upon the maritime Admiralty law waters. There's no room for self-judgment when that's the case, that's the reality. But what I can share with you about Colleen, and I can promise you with myself as well, we've been truthers and fighters our entire lives. We may not have known very much, but the things that we did know flamed inside of us. And when we saw certain things, they flamed us as kids.
The injustices.
And so we've always been that way, as I suggest all of you likely have as well. And in fact, the vast majority have been that way. And it's only been from the early 80s onwards that the fullness of this fall of mankind has really, really taken root. You need to see this, that the 60s was the battleground, and the battleground carried out through the 70s. The 70s is so chaotic because it was a continuation of the war, and they were not going to lose. They were all in. Now, Justin also said something really, really amazing about how there's frequencies, and that everyone, when there's great evil, then what Justin was saying is that therefore the good has to awaken as well, and then they have to wage harder and deeper and be bolder when the evil is strutting itself across the earth as the power that be. So think about the 60s. So we talked about the first casualty was John F. Kennedy. Now, the four big assassinations during the 60s, JFK, Malcolm X, MLK, and RFK. Now, when have we had four creations of mankind? When have we had four creations of mankind that came on the heels of one another, that were so wise, so well-spoken, so fearless, so passionate, so righteous in what they stood for and what they were willing to risk because of whom they were ultimately fighting for? When has that ever occurred before? I can't think of a time. Obviously, we don't know much or anything about our history, but I can't think of a time where it did. So you have to see what Justin was hinting at, which is that God is also very, very awake and very aware. His creation is him. So he's very, very tuned in, dialed in to what is happening. And the gifts that came to us through the 60s were very, 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 very powerful, because so many of the key figures that we associate with hippies, or even with the freaks in the 50s, were government agents, were Kabbalistic agents, were double agents pretending to be enlightened figures when they weren't at all, because they were trying to steer you down certain pathways. So, you know, who's the lady that is so associated in the 60s with feminism and women's liberation? She was out at North. I always want to say, is it Gloria Vanderbilt?
Gloria Steinem.
Gloria Steinem.
Is that
Gloria
the lady that's
Steinem.
going like this?
And I think it was Gloria Steinem. And but there's somebody else. And then what do we end up finding out? That they're effing freaking CIA agents. And even who's that gigantic woman, probably a man, who was French and had the cooking show during the 60s as well? Julia Childs. Julia Childs. What do we find out about Julia Childs? She was a freaking CIA operative. Julia Childs.
Somebody else is Gloria Steiner.
Yeah, Gloria Steinem. Yeah, and Julia Childs and Jackson Pollock, who took art to an all-time low by hanging empty canvases on a wall and saying that that's art, and people are going, "Oh my God, that's so brilliant! Oh my God, that's amazing!"
They were mind messing with us
Exactly.
completely, and taking away our right brain and inserting some sort of a retardation.
Jackson Pollock threw brushes dipped in paint at a canvas and hung that on the wall and said, "That's art." You know who does that? The Cabal, Kane. Left-brainers do that. Why? Because they can't paint. Why? Because they can't create. Because they have no passageway into the right hemisphere of the brain. So that's how you have to make way for talentless boobs to become famous.
Someone
So
says
there's no talent in these Kabbalists.
Jerry Garcia.
Well, Garcia had to be in with them. The rest of the band was clearly a mesh between the CIA, MI5, MI6, and Tavistock. I mean, the whole band was. Garcia, I tend to see Garcia as needing to be reprogrammed all the time. I think that's what his wife was his handler. But I tend to see Garcia as quite likely having a kindness in him and having it exercised out of him again and again and again. But make no mistake about it. I mean, the Grateful Dead, Jesus, I mean, any other band, if you didn't have 3 hit singles, they were threatening to cancel your record contract. The Grateful Dead never had a hit single. And you know, they're the longest surviving band of all, right? Because they were all Kabbalistic agents.
When they were just mocking us with their name too, as
The Grateful Dead,
you know,
which is
A
what we
program,
are.
right? It's
Right.
another program they were running, level upon level of programs, just inserting all sorts of thoughts and ideas into our brain and planting seeds and wow, they went at us hard in the 60s.
Because it was all
They
out war.
went
Go
out,
ahead,
yeah.
Eugene. It was all out war.
No, I was gonna say exactly that. And doesn't that bring us back around to the 60s where they were really trying to program us? Like they ramped up all of their existing parasite programs and then the hippies didn't want anything to do with it.
Right. Well, and they backtracked off of their brainwashing in the 60s because what they found is that they were in an all-out war because God came out with JFK, with Malcolm X, with MLK, and with RFK. And if JFK was John Galted, then let me tell you, there are some bizarre things about the day that Malcolm X was assassinated, and the FBI were all over that assassination. So there's a chance that Malcolm X
Oh, and
is.
they absolutely, the White Hats would have absolutely known that there was going to be some sort of a
They did. I mean,
takedown of
it was daily. It was literally people within the Malcolm X camp were basically saying to him, that any day they're going to kill you. You know, we need to start canceling events, so at the very least they don't know where we're going to show up next and where we're going to be, because they're planning these things out, Malcolm, and they're going to take you out. So and then, you know, like I say, everybody knew that they were going to kill Martin Luther King. And I mean, Martin Luther King on his most famous speech, which is, I have been to the mountaintop,
Right.
and we will get there. I have seen this holy land, and we are going to get, I may not get there with you.
Right.
That's code.
Right.
That's code.
Right.
A marked man. So why would the powers that be, if they pulled JFK out of this, would they not pull Martin Luther King
course
out
they
of
did.
this and allow him
Of
to be
course they did.
shot in the face and everything
There's no
else?
way.
And then Robert Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel. Just all the stuff with Martin Luther King's assassination at Memphis, nothing adds up. Nothing adds up about the JFK assassination. Very little adds up about the Malcolm X assassination, and nothing adds up about the RFK assassination in the Ambassador Hotel. None of it does, which means that these are very likely all staged events to take these powerful people away and keep them safe and have them working behind the scenes. And when those 4 men were taken out, who replaced them? See, Colleen makes a great point, and then Justin added to it and said, you know, well, there's really no justification for any of these leaders. But so Colleen said that John F. Kennedy is still president because he was not able to complete his term. And he clearly would have won in the biggest landslide in history to that point in '64, had that election gone ahead. He would have won in the biggest landslide ever. So he would have been president for 8 years. And hey, Richard Nixon does not win the '68 election if he's running against Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy wins that election in a huge landslide if he runs, but he wasn't allowed to. So you just see presidency after presidency that is illegitimate, and not just in the United States, but virtually everywhere across this earth that had to be faked, that had to be blood moneyed into existence, because they were fighting an all-out war against goodness. And we're going to get into so much more information as we go tonight, but that's the central thesis behind everything in the presentation tonight. You've been lied to about everything, and what you've been told about the hippies is largely a massive lie. The hippies were geniuses. They were smart, and they were love, and they were family, and they were individuals. They were divine beings apart from cities. They were not in cities. They didn't put their kids to school. They didn't believe in modern medicine. They didn't jab their kids. They didn't supplement their kids with synthetic pills. They lived off the land. They were vegetarians. They were frugivores. They were doing things the right way. They were raw. The '60s was raw. And another massive thing that's lied to and hidden about the 1960s is they meditated the shit out of the '60s. They meditated. Hippies meditated. They were deep into meditation.
And you know what else they couldn't do with hippies? They couldn't use the program of religion on the hippies either.
That's right.
Because the hippies saw right through it.
That's right.
They were so clever. And so they knew in order to get that program of religion going, they're going to have to kill the hippies because they were far too intuitive. They saw too clearly.
Exactly. So now this brings up a huge point that I want to address here. One of the biggest, probably the biggest things about the hippies that you don't know is that virtually all of them, because remember, the hippies are born out of the freaks of the 50s. The freaks of the 50s have now been stereotyped by Mike Myers and other veterans of Saturday Night Live, who have dumbed down the masses and have changed the narrative on all these things. To your way of thinking, a freak of the 50s was a beatnik in a coffee shop and they rhymed and they made acerbic poems and they played the bongo drums and had their little hits of espresso, and they did, you know, this little, and that's what a freak was. No, freaks were all about the taking down of organized religion and organized society. They were their 1 and 2 targets, because they saw after World War II what was going on, this homogenization of the genius, brilliance, creativity that is mankind into some dumbed down zombie. And that's, by the way, what the freaks talked about again and again. They were the ones that were first coining these terms like zombies or mummified. I think they used more so the term mummies, and that these people were wrapped up and mummified. But it's essentially the same thing. The freaks were sharp and they were harsh against society. And then this is what you see. So with this growth of the hippies in the 1960s, they were anti-organized religion. But here's the most beautiful thing that I want to share with you tonight. The truth, true, highest truth about the hippies in the 1960s. Do you know what? They began to pick up the Bible on their own. They began to read the Bible on their own. And guess what? They fell in love with Jesus Christ. And guess what? They got their hands on some other gospels, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and the Gospels of Philip and Thomas. And guess what? They put 2 and 2 together, and they were the first ones in a long while that began to talk about this Lord and Lady Christed figures. And they were talking about this divine union. So guess what was also happening in the 60s? They were practicing sacred sex. They got into these Gnostic teachings about not spilling the seed and about immaculate conception. You don't know any of these things because it has been shut from you. The door, again, has been slammed shut in your face, because that's the only way that these monsters can survive. If you cannot pass go and you cannot collect your $200 to proceed with the game, so you're trapped. They've built a trap for us, and they've caged us as these human beings. So the biggest truth that I want to share with everyone tonight is that the hippies fell in love with Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. They fell in love with the New Testament of the Bible. They taught Jesus Christ, and they lived the teachings of Jesus Christ. And is it any wonder that the hippies in the 60s, now remember, the Lord of the Rings was published, first publication of the Lord of the Rings, of the Fellowship of the Ring, was in 1954. By 1965, 11 years, by 1965, it had become one of the 5 or 6 top-selling books of the 20th century. And when it first started selling in the 50s, it sold well because The Hobbit was quite successful. People were waiting for a sequel. And when they read this, they recommended it to all of their friends because it was that good. And it began to grow. And after a certain point, I think like 58, they had to press The Lord of the Rings every year. They had to do repressings of The Lord of the Rings every year to keep up with the demand for this trilogy, these 3 books. They never stopped repressing these books.
And it's part of the one story.
It is. They're absolutely
So
telling.
it was just another arm of them getting closer to God through Tolkien's beautiful works.
Through Jesus Christ, which is Aragorn.
Absolutely.
The
Well, it's the one
reunifier of 2
story,
worlds.
right?
Mary Magdalene,
Yeah.
Arwen.
All of those characters would have eventually brought you back to that same scenario.
Mary Magdalene, Arwen, even star, the even star of her people. Arwen, who was always clothed in white, and who was known, she was celebrated. Galadriel was celebrated as the sun of elven women, that fiery power and the genius and the beauty of the daytime. But Arwen, who is the granddaughter, by the way, of Galadriel, because Elrond married Galadriel's daughter, and their children are Galadriel's grandchildren. So Arwen is the grandmother. So Galadriel is the grandmother of Arwen, and Arwen was the moon in the sky. She was the night, and Galadriel was the fiery day. And so you absolutely see this Lord and Lady Christ, and this is why she chose Aragorn, because Aragorn was this renewer, the renewer of the fallen man to the new man, or ions, the single ions, the Numenorians. And it's the Bible. It's the New Testament. It's Lord and Lady Christ. And is it any wonder? And by the way, C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia became a massive hit as well, because they saw the same story played out in his brilliant tale of these children who went into the cloister, the closet, the wardrobe closet, and shut the door.
So what does that make these beautiful people that are writing these and creating these movies and writing these books? It means they're part of the team.
That's right. One way or another, you're part
right?
of God's team.
Yeah,
Q is God's team.
Absolutely.
went within and then met the Lion of Judah, who was crucified and then rose again from the dead. Like, wow, it's just out there. But I keep coming back to this, but I really do think that Lord of the Rings and all these works were well received because the people were not psychologically impoverished. And that the whole programming was to impoverish you psychologically and to just take away any kind of foundation.
That's why they had to take us to war.
Yes.
They had to bring war into it.
So Colleen makes a great comment, and her and I are just been shocked about this, because for 3 years we've been going on and on about Professor Tolkien and his creation of Middle Earth and the Lord of the Rings. And we've been shocked at how few people are excited about this or connected, when after the Bible, it is now the second biggest selling book of all time is the Lord of the Rings after the Bible. And that's because it is a variation of the Bible. And so when we were just shocked at how few people were connecting to us about Tolkien, and still,
we've got maybe a couple people that are
Aaron Gorn, who's writing an amazing book about having the courage to listen to what we've been sharing and saying that Tolkien did write an allegory. The Lord of the Rings is the ultimate allegory, because it's the Bible played out in this incredible divine mind. So what is Professor Tolkien? How do you know that Tolkien is a righteous individual? He created the richness that is Middle Earth, that is the endless, I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of pages of raw creation by this divine man in the right hemisphere of the brain. So you absolutely know, and this is why John F. Kennedy probably Jr. was profoundly affected by these books. This is why I think I have a little bit of an insight into his mind, because I think growing up, we're both about the same age. I think growing up, we both kind of read the same books, and we were powerfully influenced by these geniuses that came along. And again, like, it's no surprise with Ayn Rand and The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged are 2 of the 10 best novels ever written. Howard Rourke and John Galt are Jesus Christ. And you want to say Anne Ryan.
Those are true role models to look up to in life.
Wow.
Once you see those characters, they stay with you forever.
And the movies that were made for both of these, Justin and Eugene talked about over the last few shows, talked about how much they enjoyed the 3 movies with Atlas Shrugged. For those of you who have not seen with Gary Cooper playing Howard Rourke, you absolutely have to watch the Fountainhead movie as well. And by the way, Gary Cooper offered to take nothing just to play the role. And apparently the biggest names in Hollywood, including Cary Grant, were all fighting over each other to get the role of Howard Rourke. Because what is Howard Rourke?
He's a real man.
Uncompromising man. He's a real man. He was uncompromising. And so his architectural firm, because he wouldn't compromise. And I mean, the scenes that she writes in the book and then what are played out in the movie, you have to watch, you have to read to believe, and you have to watch to see. I mean, if you watch the movie Fountainhead, you're seeing the Cabal. They're there on screen. They're there, and they're speaking directly to us. It's a comm to us, telling you. And what are they saying to Howard Rourke? We will destroy you. We don't hate you. We respect the daylights out of you. Just know we can't possibly allow you to have your buildings to see the light of day, because you would awaken these sheeple, these masses, and we must keep them asleep. So what did Howard Rourke do? Versus then capitulate, he went to a granite, a granite heap, and he began, to drill and harvest granite instead of compromise. Happily doing so because he would be a free man, and eventually this played itself out because you're rewarded. But these are incredible stories. So if I have some kind of insight into a little bit of that mind, it's likely because we grew up reading the same fantastical works. We read the same history. We were powerfully enamored with and attached to these brilliant figures from the past. I mean, just my coming across Sun Tzu and the Art of War, and just knowing these things. So this is the wholeness of the 1960s, is that the hippies, whether they were, and again, look at John F. Kennedy. Beautiful, shining light, intellect, genius, kindness. As I've played for Colleen over the years, I've played for Colleen press conference after press conference after press conference, because you can learn so much from just observing the man. You can't be prepped for this. These are just random questions of the press corps. And he encouraged all of them and everyone, and they asked hard questions, and he gave hard responses, but honest responses back. And he had a sense of humor second to none. He had a sharpness of mind second to none.
So cool and calm too.
Cool and calm, but he just had a grace about him. The spirit of the mother flew purely through that man. He was special. He was special in every regard. And like I said, the hippies really took offense to the JFK assassination. And as the insanity of the Lyndon Johnson government and then the Nixon government came to play through the rest of the 60s and into the early 70s, the hippies began to miss and exalt John Kennedy even higher, because they saw, and then they knew that he was absolutely assassinated, that he was taken out by the powers that be, because of the fools that followed in his footprints. So you look at this again, John F. Kennedy and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. There is a divinity, there is a grace, there is a sense of humor, there is a wit, there is a presence with all four men that I can't do justice in attempting to explain to you. You have to go back and watch their speeches. In many cases, there's very little of Malcolm X that was videotaped that's available anywhere on YouTube. There's quite a bit of audio, and you'll be blown away with that. But when you have those rare occurrences when you can see the man and hear the man, What do you see? What do you feel? You see and you feel that Christed energy. You absolutely do. There is a wisdom, there is a presence, there is a grace with those four men.
It
And
would be super cool if they would have taken a lot of video after they John Galted these people and then showed it to us now. Wouldn't that be an amazing?
I think they did, and I think that's some of the things that will be coming. I think that's a lot of what will be coming. I think there's going to be, like Colleen always likes to say, we love the Lord of the Rings movies, but we love the behind the scenes as much, because this is your family. You see that these are people that would have worked on these movies for nothing just to be a part of them, as Colleen and I would have. We would have worked for free
Yep,
just to be a part of
that
those
whole
movies.
experience. Yeah.
And so we're going to see this with the Michael Jacksons and the Princess Dianas and the Tom Pettys and the Princes and everybody else, the Elvises. We're going to see their story. I mean, Elvis and Marilyn Monroe will probably be very, very, very powerful, poignant stories to see the level of selflessness to go from the highest fame to everyone thinking that, you know, that you died, and then have them savage your character.
And the other thing that I was thinking about is, you know how we've seen Tom Hanks is like Rockefeller or
Yeah,
whoever's
he's a
son.
Rockefeller.
We don't know how many beautiful, famous people have had children that who are John Galted, that we have been, you know, probably
Unaware of. Yeah.
right unaware of.
Why does Kevin Costner sound a lot like John Kennedy? Why does Kevin Costner
I
have the
don't
exact
know.
same
I
lips and sort of
wonder.
mouth and lips? And they
Right?
both have a lot of the same mannerisms, especially with their hands.
Maybe Mel Gibson's in there. Maybe all of these white hats, and they're just like part of the family, because what does Q say? Family's everything.
Mhm.
JFK says family's everything.
Mhm.
So, wow.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of documentaries and movies and just beautiful things we'll get to witness that have described this whole behind the scenes, as you say, world that's been playing out, you know, always working for us, and where we've felt and thought that everything was just getting darker and darker and darker, and it was getting more hopeless and hopeless. What was actually happening was this ever-growing light that was growing and building and combating all of these things. And so, yeah, we'll get to see the full perspective, the full picture, and I'm really excited about that part.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you for that, Justin. I do feel strongly that we will get the whole behind it. This is all about family. This is all about family. So we will see the behind the scenes with the DVD. So the movie itself will probably be like about 6 DVDs, just to be able to watch the fullness of the movies. But then you'll get access to the 26 volume appendices, the behind the scenes appendices to the making of the movie, when that comes out over 26 volumes, A to Z. And then we'll see the richness of all of these stories. And I would imagine they will let us in on how they did it. And that in and of itself will be absolutely mind-blowing as well. So again, to go back, this is so important for you to try and wrap your minds around. God is so active in all of this. All of this is God's plan, and God is doing everything he can to balance the scale, okay? Because that's what justice is balance. That's what the scale is attempting to achieve, is blind balance. As easy as ABC 1, 2, 3, do, re, mi, baby, you and me. That's what it's all about. So John Kennedy comes along, and Malcolm X comes along, and Martin Luther King, and Robert Kennedy. Each one of them had a grace, a presence, a capacity for action, and a capacity for speech that was second to none. We were blessed. We were truly blessed. We're being given the best of us in the 60s. Now, why would that be the case? Because it was all-out war. It was an all-out war that the Cabal realized that if they lost, they were done forever, and they had to win. And that's why they were prepared to do anything, making it so obvious. I mean, like I say, at the Monterey Pop Festival, what did David Crosby of the Byrds, what did he do? He interrupted the start of one of the Byrds songs with, and what did he do? He said, hey everyone, I just want to tell you, President Kennedy wasn't assassinated by some lone nut gunman. President Kennedy was whacked by the establishment, and you have a right to know this. You need to know that the people who are behind the scenes running this government and probably all other governments are the ones who took this president out. That's David Crosby on the stage of the Monterey Pop Festival saying to you that John F. Kennedy was not killed by some lone nut assassin. So you had, and remember, the same is true for Hollywood. In the beginning, Hollywood was producing some great stuff. There were some great directors and there were some great actors in Hollywood. There's some great films that came out of Hollywood. Do you know why? Because you have to have a product to make people buy in. And then what do? You pull the rug out from underneath them. And what that means is you take the quality out of Hollywood and then you replace it with just shit. But it's Hollywood and there's stars and celebrities that you worship. So it's all the same. It's all the same. And you give out Academy Awards. Why? To say that, you see, there are some good movies, but it's just like shit. And this is the best of shitty movies. Way to go. There, you win, because this is the best of shitty movies. That's what they were doing. But in the beginning, they had to have a product. So there was Hitchcock, and there were great actors, Cary Grant. And there were great actors, Gary Cooper, and there were great movies. There were great roles because they had to have a product. The music industry is no different. When they started to roll this out in the 50s by controlling and limiting the number of rock stars in the 50s, what they found is that they created a powder keg that they couldn't control, and it had to grow and expand beyond this tight little group, which, they killed most of them with Buddy Holly, which they had to take out Buddy Holly because Buddy Holly was brilliant, articulate, a genius, was combining all forms of music, and he was writing these gorgeous songs that were allegories about casting thy net to the right. You can't after Buddy Holly wrote True Love Ways, you can't let him continue. So there's massive hope that Buddy Holly has been John Galted.
I think that they didn't really understand how powerful music.
That's right.
And musicians and their beautiful,
because they're
white,
Canaanites.
Beautiful magic spells
Yes.
that they would, that touched our hearts.
True Love Ways.
Right? I don't think that they quite understood, because the Cabalists, the Canaanites, they couldn't feel it the way we can.
That's right.
And then they were observing how we all reacted to this incredible music. And they knew they had to nab it, but they didn't really understand how powerful it was. I don't think at that point.
That's right.
Well, that's the sort of comedic part about what they
That's
had
right.
what they had to sell. In order to sell a product, the only thing that anyone in their right mind before the programming had before the true fall of man had gotten to that extent, the only thing that anyone wanted was telling the one story. So they had to create products that were telling the one story, which is just kind of the God's comedy within it, and in the sense that they are trying to steer everyone away from this one story as much as possible.
But
And
they
yet-
had to make movies about it
Yeah.
as
yet-
allegories.
Yet they had to sell that in order to make it work, in order to hook us with that initial and then they spent all their efforts trying to distort and take away from that again. But it's just kind of a funny little nod from God.
Right?
Yeah.
Nothing can stop what is coming.
Yeah, no, it totally is, Justin. It totally is. It's a punchline to what's been going on. So what I wanted to make clear again, and this is what we're pointing out now with 93 music videos of our 1,000 of the 1,000 best rock songs of all time, and what you're seeing is that these beautiful souls are encoding this one story and this divine message. Just let us know. And
Yeah.
does it say you're muted,
Yeah,
Justin?
no, I just unmuted it. It was muted.
Okay. And one of the cameras is back up.
Yeah, we're back. No video, no sound.
Sorry, what's that? They're saying no video but sound?
No, they're saying some are saying we're back. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, we must be fully back now because both of the cameras are both showing again, Justin.
Yep.
So let me continue with that. So what you had in the beginning of the 60s was another wave of more artists, but trying to be controlled. So this is where you got the Beatles and the Stones and this Merseyside beat that they wanted to sort of become the style of the American rock and roll as well, and they were just trying to control everything, and they couldn't. And the Byrds came. Virtually everybody was coming sort of from a Woody Guthrie background, so it was sort of bluegrassish and folky. And folk is great because it's roots, and folk means folk. It's real people. And that's what Woody Guthrie wrote about. He wrote about real stories, real truth about real people, and that's folk music. Folk music is true stories about real people. And so the Byrds brought folk music to the electric guitar. And they put a spin on this Mersey sound and the Mersey beat of the Beatles and the Stones and product that was coming out of Great Britain at the time. And then across America, which was very righteous. Got to remember, it was still very, very righteous. There was this huge wave of good kids that they heard Woody Guthrie on electric guitar. and tight pants and high heel boots, and they thought that was really, really, really cool. And then you just had this massive influx. So what you need to try and wrap your minds around is that Well, they tried to control rock and roll from 62 to 64. They couldn't. By 65, rock and roll had exploded, and it exploded with these righteous kids that wanted to take their poetry, that wanted to take their interpretations of the Bible and put them to music, because that's what the Byrds were doing. And
Which is their perspective of the one beautiful story.
that's right. And so we don't give the Byrds near enough credit as they deserve. Everybody gives all the credit in the world to the Beatles, but the Beatles were programmed in the beginning. And why do you think George Harrison was not allowed to have very many songs on an album? Because he was actually writing his music, and George was writing songs about the truth. I mean, Rubber Soul and George is singing Taxman. Yeah. Well, you wonder why our home address is, somewhere in the South Pacific or the Caribbean or something, because Mr. Heath is not only raping children, but he's taking 99% of what we earn in taxation. So can't have this stuff. But so what the Byrds were doing is the Byrds were taking the example of Woody Guthrie, and they were taking these beautiful folk tales and stories. That's what Dylan, by the way, Bob Dylan started with as well, is just taking true events, true stories, and then just making them so beautiful through poetry, so poetic. And then you apply them to an electric guitar. I mean, it's a very, 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 very cool thing. And so by 65, rock and roll had exploded, and there are these kids everywhere making bands up everywhere, like Buffalo Springfield. And suddenly, in a relatively, they weren't over, Buffalo Springfield was well respected, but they weren't overly famous. They didn't sell necessarily tons and tons of albums, but I mean, who was in Buffalo Springfield? That's Stephen Stills and Neil Young. Jim Messina, who co-founder of the Eagles. So these are very influential. And then, when eventually, as people broke away from the Byrds, David Crosby aligned with Stephen Stills from Buffalo Springfield, and then they brought Graham Nash, who broke away from the Hollies, and that became Crosby, Stills and Nash. And then Neil Young went solo, but then he did stuff with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And then Chris Hillman from the Byrds, he created the Flying Burrito Brothers. And if you've never heard the Flying Burrito Brothers, they're great, because they brought basically elements of Woody Guthrie and bluegrass to folk, to rock, to country, and they unified it into the most remarkable, really, really creative sound. And they were just all singing songs about the one story, every single song.
And so this was the public side of the war that was taking place.
That's right, and it was, and so as these bands, as rock came into the 70s with so many famous bands, so many great bands. I mean, this is what a great time to be alive in your life. Just look at the bands that were all seemingly outdoing one another with classic album after classic album after classic album, and suddenly John Fogerty and CCR came along, and they were outdoing everybody else with all of these just genius albums. And so this is why the likes of Tom Petty came along. This is why the likes of Donald Fagen and Walter Becker came along, because they were motivated beyond description to follow in their footsteps. Well, hey, that's what was inspiring Woody Guthrie to do what he did. He was so in love with Jesus Christ. He was so in love with the truth that was in the Bible. He was so in love with the troubadours of true history that were singing these songs of truth and love the whole way through. He knew he had to do this. So this is why you have Christed figures, Christed individuals
because when you hear this one story, you just go all purple. You just get purpley rain, and you just get all goosebumps everywhere, and shivers down me spine, and you just have to do this, and you just have to start writing stuff, and the stuff that you're writing is divine. I mean, look at how good Tom Petty was right out of the gate. Look at the first album that Michael Jackson did on his own, away from the Jackson 5, and trying to create, some autonomy in his own music and Motown. It's brilliant. Take a look at the first album Stevie Wonder did when he was no longer this blind slave to Motown and forced to sing all the songs that they wanted Stevie to sing. And then Stevie finally got the right to be able to write his own music. And then holy cow. I mean, and Stevie Wonder was outdoing everyone. And then Michael Jackson was outdoing everyone. And then along came Earth, Wind and Fire, and they were outdoing everyone. And then, wow, what a time. So by the time we get to 1983, and it's the Cannibal Club singing, I Want You to Bite My Ear Off and Vomit It Down My Spine with an electronic keyboard, and there's 2 chords in the song. How did that happen? How did we go from, now remember, I live books and I live music. So I know this, and it's never left me. So I absolutely know. 1980 is as good a year as music. There are so many of the greatest albums ever released in 1980. It's scary. When you look at the charts, you look at a band like in 1980, Dire Straits with Making Movies. Making Movies only got up to like number, I think like 13 or 15 on the top 200 album charts. Why? Because the 12 albums that were ahead of them were just as good, or just like it's incredible. And I can tell you that 1982 was almost as good as 1980. How did the wheels fall off in 83? Because there's a war being fought. When the shots were fired, and John F. Kennedy and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Robert King, when Buddy Holly has to be John Galted out of this at the end of 59, this is the war. You're just not seeing the fruits of the Cabal's labor until about 83. And then it's, Harry and the Hendersons with Eat a Rotten Egg. And that's the top 10. And there's, 3 electronic instruments and 2 chords. And that's your top 20. And also by 1983, this is what was happening starting in the late 60s. The Cabal was buying up all of the radio stations, and there were so many, especially
because they realized how
powerful
this was as a medium for them to program us
And
quicker.
That's right. And how powerful disc jockeys were because of how powerful music is. And that's why Wolfman Jack got kicked out of every single station in America, and eventually had to find a place in Mexico on the border of the states. And and they were trying to breathe and breathe the radio signals to get into America so people could hear them.
So going back and thinking about the protocols of Zion, all of that information with the secret societies, when were they ramping this up? They've already decided at this point in the 60s that they were going to completely annihilate us at a certain point.
Mankind, the truth,
right.
The truth. Yeah.
So in the 50s and 60s, I mean, these secret societies that they had infiltrated. So they've infiltrated the Freemasons, and the Jesuits are all, placing themselves in society with their corporations and so they're working behind the scenes.
Industries, right?
Yeah. So they're working behind the scenes in all of these And I don't know about their 3-letter organization.
Of course, CIA was running almost all of
Right.
these industries.
Right, so there was, the Tavistock was put in place, and all of these mine programs were starting up in the 60s, right? Or had they already been implemented much sooner?
What did Alfred Hitchcock say? It rarely gets talked about. Well, what did Hitchcock say about when did Hollywood lose its luster? He said that the day that the CIA had to approve your script. You don't hear that talked about very often.
Or Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah. So you look at people like quiet guys. You look at people like Uncle Walt. Well, the two Uncle Walts, right? Walt Disney and Walter Cronkite. I mean, these are people that are powerfully connected to and controlled by the cabal. Walter Cronkite was not there to benignly read to you the news of the night. He was there to pass on an agenda. And like I say, if you can look at some of these speeches in New York where Cronkite is speaking to the Council of Foreign Relations and others, and the things that Cronkite was saying in these meetings are just terrifying, because most of America saw Walter Cronkite as the most honest man in America. He was a fucking jackal.
Right, so now you're looking at the hippies, and they're trying to get people back onto the land, getting us connected back to God. And the cabal is trying to get us into cities.
Yeah.
So that they can create these basic jail cells for all of their workers. And so they could easily program them, because you need them inside of these cities to program them.
MK Ultra concentration camps.
Yeah. And
Trauma-based mind control.
so this war was happening all around us. Some of us weren't alive then. I was born in the 60s, but the younger ones here haven't been. But you see the effects of it, right? It's just, it's devastating.
That's right. And so, every time we do this, every time we show you what they've done is, because they don't make anything. They steal and then pervert. So every time we do this to, there are those that rail against this in the beginning, and eventually they come around. Same thing with the Freemasons. Come on, Charlie. And then, we give you the full weight of the truth of who they are, and it starts to sink in. So it's the same thing. So why are there still people that will listen to this and go, yeah, no, Charlie, I'm not there with you on the hippies. I never do that. Because what you know of the hippies, what you've seen of the hippies, and what you've been taught about the hippies is what came out of San Francisco. What did Frank Zappa say about the San Francisco hippies? He said, they're fake. He said, if you want to see what a real hippie is, he said, well, they're freaks. And he said, you'll find them in Los Angeles, but there's no coverage of the LA hippies. There's just the San Francisco
Right, so
hippies.
already at that point, we had infiltrators. They were trying to switch them up, right?
That's right. So
Make the hippies look like they were just the drug-induced, sex-crazed.
that's right. Yeah. Bead wearing.
Yeah,
Yeah, when then they introduced the war on drugs so that they could have a scapegoat to blame on plant drugs, insert drugs wherever, and then just use that as an excuse to go in. And it was the same thing they did with the rising Black community as well. It's the same strategy that they employ to just target and hijack and steer anyone in any sort of direction. But
So thank you, Justin. That is so exactly true. And then like Justin is saying, it plays out with every other group, because they have their little narrative and they roll it out. They do the same plan.
it's like Eugene talked about the whack-a-mole. They saw people rising and
Whack.
they had to beat them down. And so you can't have Martin Luther King inspiring people to rise without them coming forward, because it is the end of them. As soon as that starts to happen, as soon as we start to rise, it is very quick to ignite, and it's very quickly their demise. So they have to extinguish it wherever it emerges.
The
Yeah.
Kundalini, she wants to rise.
Yeah, once
Yeah,
we
it's
get
a
our
coiled
heads,
spring.
once we get our heads out of our asses, they can't really control us.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And you know, the simple, just so you know, that getting your head out of your ass is actually a dark saying of old, because what it's saying is you get out of the root Muladhara chakra, which is rooted, you know, in you know where your ass is, where your bowels are. And that's your root Muladhara chakra. So so yeah, that's exactly right. So what we're talking about, what you're seeing here is this all-out war. And now, so what you're getting is, if you watch the news, then that's all you know about what a hippie is. And if you're only watching specials and you know, specials on TV, so if the Smothers Brothers do a show, or you know, if Dick Van Dyke, and if they work the hippie narrative into it, remember, you know, the TV industry was being run by the CIA, the movie industry was being run by the CIA. So they're putting a certain narrative about these hippies, and they were doing it in real time in 67 and 68 and 69. And what they began to do is really show the darkness through drugs. And so who created LSD? Just some loner hippie somewhere?
It absolutely had to be like the CIA type, the
Absolutely.
the mind
yes,
control science.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's right. That these are scientists that work for the Cabal through agencies like the CIA. And what they said is, I want you to examine what? Where did LSD come from? It came from a plant. It is a variation. It's just like in a hospital,
So
they
they looked
give
at
you.
what the psilocybin mushroom was doing to people, and they created a synthetic version of it
Exactly right. So
that they
so-
could make more powerful or more the different,
controlled, because it's all about control. It's all about X, Y, and Z with regard to these scientists. And so in the beginning, a lot of this acid was being imprinted by the likes of Owsley Stanley to give good rise and good times. And so and remember, LSD was being handed out for free everywhere, and cops were ordered not to stop anyone who was passing out LSD. So LSD, and then how is it possible that Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters get on a Dayglow bus that is the most freakazoid looking contraption, and they leave San Francisco and travel all across America in this bus, handing out LSD for free everywhere they go, and not get arrested? How is that possible?
well, it's controlled.
Well, yeah, that's right. When you're riding in the CIA caravan, then that's the only way that happens.
And nothing has changed today. It's exactly what the Antifa were all about, and all of the, you know, those wonderful,
Subversive?
no, where you guys would all go to your music things. What are they called?
Festivals?
Oh,
Your music festivals, and all those kids would be out there, and they'd all be on that drug ecstasy.
oh yeah.
Or whatever, and of course it
MDMA.
was all allowed. They thought they were getting away with something, but they weren't. It
Exactly.
was all being controlled.
Yes.
And all of the DJs, in fact, some of them were definitely CIA.
Oh my God,
and
not
so-
some of them, most
Right,
of these.
and so you're just, nothing has changed.
Yes.
They just continued with a whole generation of mind
Vibrational.
control.
Yeah, most of those big festival techno pop electronic DJs that became, how does that person become a big star? Like I don't get that at all. The person who's spinning the record is the big star. I mean, boy, we got this backwards.
They're the handler at
Yeah.
that point.
They're
They're
the
handler.
middleman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so these guys are all being knighted by the Queen from 2010 onwards. she's knighting all of these people through the 90s and 2000s that were creating these massive festivals where they were handing out ecstasy, just like LSD. So the next thing that I want to share with everyone is that the hippies were not into LSD. That you think they are, because that's what every Hollywood movie shows you. You think they are because that's what every television show shows you about the 60s. The 60s was about experimentation and everybody was LSD. No, I'm sorry. That's what they told you on the news. This is what these who's the doctor from Harvard, very famous, and who was given a Cabal house in upstate New York, and he's handing out LSD, and then he went on the road, and he has the famous, expression, what
Dropout.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my
Basically
gosh,
drop out.
yeah.
That was Leary.
Timothy Leary,
Yeah.
Timothy Leary, that's right. So Timothy Leary. So the biggest names, and take a look at some of the most famous hippies of the day. Abby Hoffman, and who was always with Hoffman? It was Rubenstein. Yeah. So it was Hoffman and Rubenstein were these two really loud hippies, and they were always given the megaphone at all of these rallies, and they were the ones that were speaking man, and they were always speaking about the man, and getting hippies angry with the man. And what do we find out? What do we find out in the 90s through declassified CIA documents? Yeah, they both were CIA operatives.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. They all
So we've
all
been
the
played,
famous
we've
ones.
been played the whole way through.
Because the real hippies during the 60s weren't in San Francisco. Those hippies in California were constantly walking all the way from Los Angeles in the south to north of Los Angeles in the south to south of San Francisco in the north. And they would have these Renaissance fairs, of which David Crosby wrote about in The Birds. And these were just the most amazing creations where money was not used, where people were bartering their beautiful creations and their services. And it was just this constant, it was a life. And they just constantly migrated, which is what all the ancients did, by the way. They all migrated depending on the seasons to where they wanted to be. And they were just going and living as part of these fairs. And it was the most amazing thing. And they traded their wares during the day, and at nighttime, they would light up the incense. At nighttime, they would sit around the campfires. Oh my God, that's godly. That's connecting to God. That's what they were doing. You're just been filled with a pack of lies. So when you see the San Francisco hippies, when you see the example of the hippies out of San Francisco, remember, they made such a huge deal about Haight-Ashbury Street in San Francisco. Remember what George Harrison did? George Harrison said, okay, I got to check this out. I want to see this. So George Harrison hired a private jet, and the private jet took George from London all the way to San Francisco. And George was so excited to see this hippie movement, he asked to be taken right to Haight-Ashbury Street. And George Harrison stayed on Haight-Ashbury Street for just over an hour. He got back on the airplane. He said, take me back to London. This is bullshit. This is just completely bullshit. And there are great interviews and comments by George just saying it wasn't what this was supposed to be about. He said it was all fake. It was all fake.
So there you go. So he had to check it out himself, and he discovered that it was all a lie.
All a lie. All a lie.
But at that point, George obviously also knew what they had been up against.
Yeah, and what they were forced to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and again, George Harrison. One of the reasons why George's first solo album, All Things Must Pass, is a double album, is because George had a backlog of songs from 65 to 70. He had a backlog of songs because he was only being allowed one, maybe two cuts on an album. And so, it's funny because the album that is talked about as being one of the best albums of all time, and certainly, the best album out of the 60s and stuff, is the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's. It's not that good of an album. It's not a bad album, but it's not that great of an album. And it's funny that they would choose that album because it had that psychedelic LSD edge to the songs and to the production and to the sound of that music. And on Sgt. Pepper's, George was only allowed one track. What's the song George Harrison wrote for the Beatles on Sgt. Pepper's? And it sticks out like a sore thumb because it doesn't belong on the album. Within you, without you. Within you, without you. And he's talking about the divinity and the necessity of going within.
Now,
And whether you're in or without, you're still the child of God. And your task in life is to connect to God.
so they were digging deep into themselves at that point. Now, let's talk about the fact that now the real Paul during that time, during the early 60s.
Well, no, that's 65. We're talking about the late summer of this accident in 65 to be replaced by fall.
Is it
So
possible?
James Paul McCartney
Is-
is very likely that James Paul McCartney was John Galted and was
Exactly
taken
my
out of
point.
this because this is 65. This is two years. I mean, the Beatles were created
So can you
to
imagine?
roll out after killing JFK.
Mm.
Because you have to distract the masses because they were going to go crazy by taking JFK away from them.
So can you guys wrap your head around that? If Paul, who was John Galted, but the Cabal had to create another, their whole plan was to put somebody else in their place, which was this.
Yeah. Well, it's William Shepherd,
Right.
Billy Shears the sheep, William Shepherd,
So
who
the
went
real,
by the stage name of Vivian Stanshall.
so weird.
Yeah.
So this just gets stranger and stranger, and you feel pretty soon like you are Alice, 10 feet tall, and just everything's distorted.
Yeah.
And everything's getting wackier and wackier as the story continues. But I'm sure that so many people back then must have been equally as
Right.
mystified
So-
as to what was going on.
So then which Paul McCartney was Michael Jackson doing duets with? Was it Fall or was it Paul? I wonder. It begs the question. And at a certain point, remember, we talked about this, Justin spoke to it, Colleen spoke to it, we talked about this, I think on the last show as well. At a certain point, you can start to do things like that, and the Cabal can't say anything about it, because if they do, then they reveal themselves. They reveal their evil plots and their evil plans. So there's very little that.
So the
that
movie
they can
within a
do.
movie, within a movie.
Yeah.
A reality within a reality.
Yeah. So take and once again, take a look out of the 50s with rock and roll. Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly, who continue to grow in their trade, grow in their craft. And what did they grow in? Their love and appreciation for God. And they had to be removed. They had to be minimized. They had to be removed. So if Elvis was John Galted, there is a huge chance that Buddy Holly was John Galted. So like Colleen likes to speculate, then what have they been doing? Who have they been helping? You know, like remember on the last show, we were talking to you about how Michael Jackson has been singing uncredited background vocal parts
Wow.
on some of the most popular songs in the 70s and the 80s. Because he wanted to help, and we've been sharing to you the band Toto spent their life, you know, not only making incredible albums, but helping everybody else make great albums and stuff, all selflessly, incredibly selflessly. So you begin to look at this, and what has Elvis been doing to help people? What is What has Buddy Holly been doing? What is Paul McCartney, the real Paul McCartney, been doing behind the scenes? What has John Lennon been doing since Christmas of 1980? So it's endless food for thought, which is the title of our next fireside chat is food for thought, and it literally means that. But it is food for thought in terms of what they have been doing from behind the scenes. So what we've been showing you again tonight with, once again, these righteous divine groups that had everything right, is that they find odd bedfellows. And you find again that the 1907 Chicago White Sox are tied to the hippies, just as they're tied to Adolf Hitler's Germany. And all these people who have tried to do things the right way and have had targets put on their heads by the cabal, they're part of this plan. They're part of this group. They're part of everything that's right. These are people that stood up for us. And, again, I want to reiterate this because it's a very important message. The birds aren't given near enough credit for what they did to harness this glorious period in rock and roll of incredible rock songs that were all celebrating God, Jesus Christ, Mother Mary, nature, the sacred masculine, sacred. I mean, it's incredible, because what the birds did is they took beautiful allegories from the Bible. They took beautiful stories, truthful stories, and they turned them from acoustic folk songs into rock and roll songs. And this is where largely we can thank the birds in a great way for rolling the rock, because they were writing all of these songs. You look at all those songs that the birds were writing for themselves, and of course you look at a lot of the songs that Dylan was writing. They're all talking about. He was writing about the one story as well. And they're all exalting God and God's creation, or Jesus Christ.
Quiet.
Hey, guys.
Lola, come here.
Come. Be a good girl.
Well, yeah, like
Okay.
the hippies, like the Germans, if you raise Christ, you must be crucified, you must be slandered, you must be taken down, because it's too bright of a light for the cabal.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And it takes heroes. It takes heroes like the Doobie Brothers to have the courage to demand that they're releasing, they're including on their album, Jesus Is Just All Right with Me, and that they were going to release it as a single. And after the Doobies had the courage to release a song that was exalting Jesus Christ, guess what happened? Copycat, 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 copycat. And from when they did that in 73, from 73 to 76, about 76, there was this run of incredible songs that were all sort of exalting the teachings of Jesus Christ in plain sight. And then, this gave birth to artists like Cat Stevens, that he just became an artist that was just boldly writing about the teachings of the Bible, the teachings of God, and the teachings of Jesus Christ. I mean, this boldly gave the Carpenters the wherewithal to just say that we just want to be as open as we can. I mean, at a certain point, the industry was trying to label the Carpenters as Christian as Christian rock because they were becoming so direct and overt with their celebration of Jesus, of God, of the Sacred Mother. It's incredible. So you see what happens. You see what happens with the truth. You see what happens with Jesus. You see what happens with God. You see what happens with Mary. When you give goodness, the truth, righteousness an inch, it will take far more than a mile because it is what is. It is what it is. And this is why they can't give us an inch. We can't give them an inch because they take a mile. They give us an inch, we change the world.
We take it all.
We take it all. We take the whole world because the whole world is in our hands because we are God's creation. We are God's children, and God's creation is divine and righteous. And that's why it's spread like wildfire. And that's what we're trying to share with you tonight about the 1960s. It was godliness. It was goodliness. It was individuals. It was freedom. It was back to the land. The hippies didn't have jobs. They lived off the land and provided for themselves.
But
why do you need to have a job?
No, you don't.
but we weren't given enough momentum, and they shut us down dead in our tracks.
But the thing is that they were clever about it because what would the likes, you know this to be true, and I absolutely do, because Robert Kennedy was the candidate for the hippies. Robert Kennedy was so in tune with this message that had become the hippie anthem during the 1960s. It was incredible. Bobby Kennedy's, there's movies that are made and documentaries that exist showing you the raw footage of what happened when Robert Kennedy on his 68 tour to seek the Democratic nominee to become the Democratic candidate for president in 68 against Nixon and the Republicans. When you see these things, it's just as if Jesus Christ was there. That's what it always struck me as, is that if Jesus Christ came back to us and Jesus was taken publicly out from city to city, from town to town, that's what it was like. Everybody wanted to hug and to hold Robert Kennedy. Why? Because he only spoke about peace. He only spoke about love. He said that a society is measured by those that have the least. And in our country, we're failing. People think of ourselves as the leading country in the nation. And he said, we are failing all around this country because we're not taking care of our own. And he said, shame on us. And we have to take care of our own. And then we can work towards taking care of those without everywhere in the world, because it shouldn't be about advantage and disadvantage. It should be about freedom and equality. And everywhere that Robert Kennedy went, he was met with mania. He was so loved. You give us an inch, we take it all. We give them an inch, they take a mile. That's as far as that time brain can go. And this is why, my friends, everything that you've been taught, everything that's been taught to us over the last 110 years, from the moment that the Jesuits dropped the theories of relativity, special and then general relativity on us in 1907 and then 1910 or 1911. From that moment on, it has been all out war, and it has been all out lies. This is why, because if they gave us one truth. So Charlie, thank you. We love you. You know, you've done so many great things. You okay?
Yep.
Eugene stoking the fire, and I just got a blast of smoke in his eyes. He's such a selfless soul. So yeah, this is what we're talking about. is that you say, Charlie, you're a great guy, and you're right about a lot of these things. My God, have they been lying to us, not about the global earth, and not about gravity, and not about evolution, and not about
The
dinosaurs and whatever else. Not those things, but thank you for pointing out that no, they've been lying to you about everything. This just proves it. It proves it to you. If you give us a window, look what they did in rock and roll. In a short period of time, they turned it into Roll the Rock. And all of these bands, one after another, Styx after Journey, after America, band after band, and they were all one-upsmanshipping each other with these incredible allegories and tributes to God and about Jesus Christ. And like I said, once the Doobies did Jesus Is Just All Right With Me, just entire bands and artists, Norman Greenbaum and Spirit in the Sky.
That was a great song.
It's an unbelievably great song. And then there's no more Norman Greenbaum.
I can't wait till the day we can have podcasts and we can play music for you all as we're, oh, wow, that'll be great. It's coming.
As our own radio station.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. FreakSense.
and movies. And
Yeah. And we can watch movies together and we can talk
Ooh,
about
that'd
it.
be
That's gonna be
awesome.
exciting.
Well, yeah, I mean, the one common thing about all of this movement, like whether it's Kennedy, the hippies, Germany, it's a uniting purpose, and that's why we take it all, because we're all in it together. Like where we go one, we go all. And the opposite of that, if you give the ego an inch, it's a divisive measure. That's why it can only be so powerful, and they need so many zombies to accomplish their purpose because it's all divided. Whereas once you unite, nothing can stop what is coming.
Exactly. And what did Jesus say in the book of Matthew and in the book of Luke? Jesus said that those that sow the seeds of lies are the dividers. Those who
Yes.
tell the truth are the uniters.
Exactly.
And somehow the narrative had got switched in this little spiritual community that was infiltrated, by the way. So be very careful. All of our,
as Q said, be careful who you follow.
that's right, all of our alternative medias have been infiltrated. All of these things have been infiltrated. So we have to use discernment, use our common sense once again. So
Well, the nicest, the wonderful thing about -48 is that he's come out like a steamroller of righteousness, and he's just hit everyone over the head with righteousness, and he's shown people to the umpteenth degree that this is all, that God is real, that this is all God's creation, and that everything is a message from God, and it's all encoded in numerology and symbology, and that you have to awaken to how this works. And the most divine form of the cipher in decoding this is A to Z, and A is 1 and Z is 26. It's called simple gematria. What have we always taught you about God's truth? Simple gematria is the cleanest, easiest, simplest form, because that's what God would use. And all of these names, all of these terms, all of these expressions, they're all so divinely conceived, and they're all adding up to the most divine numbers, because it's all a message.
It's purely revelatory.
It is. And then that's of course why the book of Revelation, as is the entire Bible, but Revelation is just encoding on top of encoding on top of encoding on top of encoding.
and
It
we
is
will
one
be
massive
reveling.
Yeah.
We'll revel in the truth.
That's right. And you will. And that's what the book of Revelation is saying. Those that continue to lie because they're not done sucking on the tit of the Babylon whore, are going to suffer for 1,000 years. And remember, these rewards that are coming are righteous. What you're to receive is absolutely just worthy. It is absolutely fair. And because you worked very, very hard to receive unrighteous rewards. And you have to work incredibly hard to be a liar. And I mean, just like we always talk about, how can you conceive about being a liar when it means that you have to remember that lie and invent an entire massive series of lies just to be able to protect your original lie. And then the more lies you tell, the more lies you have to make. And then you're an institution.
You're digging your own hole.
Constantly. You're constantly just doing nothing but lying. This is what, Justin and I and Colleen spent so much time during early 2021 telling you, making enemies. Charlie's dividing the truth community by telling the truth. No, I think Jesus said it was the other way around, but this is why we were sharing those things with you. If you're telling one lie, it means that the slippery slope means that you're just telling nothing but lies. This is how it works, because once you tell the one lie, you have to protect it. And then it's just an invention after other lie on other lies on other lies. And then all you're doing is just telling lies, and you don't know any difference. You can't even, after a while, you can't even help yourself but to tell a lie because you don't know anything else.
Yeah, you program yourself.
Yeah. Hence vampire, you can't even see your own reflection. You don't even know who you are because you believe your illusion.
Right,
It's real to me.
right.
When you read the Bible for yourself, Justin, what is the number one thing you learn about Jesus Christ?
There was no pushover, and he told the truth. No matter who it pissed off, no matter who it upset, no matter where it got, because he wasn't looking for anyone to please anyone. He wasn't looking for anyone to be,
Subscribers.
to be nice to anybody. He was there for the truth, to share the truth in all ways. Yeah, and it's so clear. And that's what we have to do. We have to embody this. We have to embody this truth, the one truth. There is only one truth. There is no subjective. There is no relative truth. There is just one, and you're either with it or you're against it. You're out of it, and the choice is ours.
You're either uniting or dividing.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the 60s movement is defined by the music. The music is this universe. It's the one song. And we're mostly water, just like the earth is mostly water. What we are is mostly empty space and then water. And water has memory, and water has laughter, and water has joy. And so music soothes the savage soul. Have you ever thought where that expression comes from? What's the savage soul? Music soothes the savage soul. It's your left brain. It's your left brain. Divine music soothes the savage soul.
So they also attacked the frequencies that was being
Exactly.
shared on the radio waves. And they had to change it from the God frequencies to the beta wave frequencies so that we could be easily programmed. And they had to make that switch probably very subtly, right?
Oh yeah.
So we went from 432 to 440, and now everything is 440.
Yeah.
We went from the divinity of the middle 60s through the 70s of just incredible band after incredible band. Everybody one ups being, the next artist, just, you do this, I can do this, and then somebody does that, and they just continue to raise the bar.
Kind of like
with
riffing
this.
with jazz music. It's just, right?
Yeah,
Just being
absolutely.
inspired by each other.
Yeah.
And not even necessarily trying to
No,
one-upmanship.
Exactly.
but just
but building,
creating,
Yeah.
Yeah, creating that beautiful universe, that beautiful song that is just, and there's nothing strident about it. It's just a beautiful flowing with God's creation.
Yeah, it is. It is a.
That's what we do. That's
Yes.
what we do when we're all in flow with God's story.
Yeah, it's that creative flow, that wave that
right.
as soon as you start to write it and you add to it and it just builds and grows in beauty and magnificence.
And that's what's going to happen again, people. We're all going to be inspired by each other, and we're going to become even greater. And like Jesus said,
Like
you
Jesus
will
said,
do
that's what-
greater things than me.
And
And-
this is what Justin beautifully shared with us earlier in the show. That's exactly what Justin was saying, is that because once you embrace the teachings of Jesus Christ, an inch takes everything. It doesn't just take a mile, it takes everything. And pretty soon, the silicone trees are going to start growing back, not only in Silicon Valley, they'll grow back everywhere. We, with our thoughts and our energy, have been felling trees. We've been felling miracles. We've been felling magic. We've been felling white magic. We've been cutting down miracles left, right, and center because we've been taught through the harshest economic conditions, the harshest social programming conditions. We have been brainwashed into thinking that this is a world of lack when this is an absolute world of abundance. And people fear where their next paycheck is going to come from. How are they possibly going to feed their children? How are they going to clothe their children? This is evil. This is sick, and this is evil. God created all of this for us. And the first thing when you travel, the first thing that you notice is that there's way more than enough for all of us. There is so much that's here for the amount of people that are here. There's so much for the animals. There's so much space and room for everyone. We are never going to encroach on one another. There's more than enough for everyone because the basis of God's creation is plenty. It's multitude. The genius of God's creation is that it provides for everyone in abundance. No one will ever know lack again. And that inch takes everything because it is divine.
And what do they tell you in economics? Resources are limited and demands are endless.
Mhm.
No, that's because they try to make it limited and bring in all these fossil fuels and then climate change and all this horseshit. Why? Because scarcity, to scare you, it's in the word.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So once again, oil is made by Mother Earth, and there's so much of it in the ground, and it always replenishes itself from the Sheol. If you know anything about the flat Earth or level Earth theory, and when we were first sort of digging into the ground, when we first began to have these sort of mnemonic devices that were able to sort of dig deep or pound deeply into the ground, what started to just pour out of the ground everywhere was black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. And so oil was just pouring out of holes in the ground everywhere. It was, the earth is filled with oil. And if that's where our mindset is about, raping the earth to be able to create our fuel source, well, then, we have free will, but God provides it in abundance and it's there. But no, suddenly it's a fossil fuel.
Yeah.
So now do you get the necessity for dinosaurs?
Exactly.
Now do you see why you don't want to
Exactly.
give up cheese, and you don't want to give up the ball earth, and you don't want to give up aliens, and you don't want to give up dinosaurs? Because it's heroin. You're addicted to heroin. The biggest lies are heroin, and you're addicted to them. Charlie, stop it. Stop taking my aliens away from me. Stop taking my dinosaurs away from me. Have you ever looked, and this isn't me, this is them. Have you ever looked at their official diagrams of these dinosaurs and now figure out
How do you get
out how they had sex? Okay, so you go and do this, and you can't. Okay, so once you apply motion to any of their bullshit theories, everything falls apart because the earth is still and stationary. It always has and it always will be. No such effing thing as dinosaurs. There's no such thing as a caveman. You did not evolve from a monkey or pond scum. Where's the missing link? because, well, there are no of these evolutionary beings, or there still would be. Right?
So have you made the missing link? How does a T-Rex get off from the floor? It doesn't, because it doesn't exist.
Oh my Lord, just look at these shapes. And by the way, the reason that it's all so stupid is Eric Dubay. And by the way, Colleen and I love Eric Dubay and the work that he's done. And we don't know anything about Eric Dubay at
love
all.
his tone.
But in terms of the work that Eric Dubay has done, we don't give Eric near enough. I don't know what we used to, and Eric Dubay is someone who came along and was really the first person to revive the level earth, and he did an amazing job with it. And then everything that Eric Dubay touched about truth, he was telling the truth. Everything he has taught you, he was telling the truth. So is Eric Dubay part of this plan? I think so. I absolutely think so. Either way, that this is a person who doesn't look for fame, keeps a very low profile, doesn't look for fame, doesn't look for fortune. And he's helped a ton of people, and he's helped Colleen and I along the way as well. So we don't give near enough credit to Eric Dubay, who came along and just told the truth and was just savage.
Yeah.
And
Pretty sure that was like 2014. Didn't he come along?
late 2013.
2013
very end of
with
2013.
the flat earth thing.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, I didn't know anything about him at that point, but
He was a ball
And
buster.
he's still putting out
He
videos.
is,
He's
he
still
is.
just, and it's all
we've
very
reached out to
truthful.
him, but he's pretty selective.
Yeah, and
But we love you.
here,
that's
here
fine.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the gnosis, is the truth. And like Justin just said, he still is putting out videos, and he still just is hitting people over the head with a commonsensical, logical, easy, simple to see truth in
With the same
plain sight.
tone.
That's what he's showing. And his teachings, I mean, this is why I've never done incredibly detailed, I've done lots of spiritual videos about the level earth. I haven't gone into all the great details about it because I don't need to. It's been done perfectly by Eric Dubay. Eric Dubay has a 6-hour video that he calls
That within the first 10 minutes, I was a believer.
yeah, he calls, I think the greatest documentary ever made or whatever. It's 6 hours, Eric Dubay, about flat earth. You watch it, you're a flat earther.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's so common. It's so easy
All
to
he
see.
does is lay out the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Plain and
And,
simple.
Yep.
Yeah. And
You-
Eric,
and
and
you
Eric has a great
deny
voice
that.
for that,
He
right?
does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because his voice is very calm and level.
Yeah.
His voice is level.
Yeah.
It really is. Some people say it's really boring and stuff, but
Come on,
that's
Justin.
But that's because it's a great voice, because he just wants you to focus on the information. And that's why it's never really been about Eric
Yeah.
Dubay and fame and fortune for Eric Dubay. It's just about the truth. That's why with Colleen and I, it's always just been about the message, just this truth. That's all that matters, is getting this truth out. And that's why, like we have been so blocked. It's ridiculous. But
We
that's
don't
what
even eat
happens.
cheese. That was a joke, people.
Cheesy joke.
What's a cheese?
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. So that's the thing, and it is true. These bigger lies, the big lies, those are the heroin lies, and those are the ones you don't want to give up. Charlie, don't take my aliens away from me. Well, I'm always so kind, because when all the spiritual community was reaching out to us in 2019 and 2020, we were helping them to say, no, we don't think you're off the mark at all, because again, whom you're communicating, who's giving is your higher self. You're connecting to, so the aliens, that so-called aliens, these are these higher forms of consciousness, the 7 layers of heaven within you. These are the highest forms. And by the way, it does take a Galaxy class star cruiser to be able to go to these places. You got to do the work. You have to travel millions and millions of quadrants to get from one level to the next level.
We're
This-
talking
these are-
frequencies here.
This is frequencies, my friends, and it's space, inner space, infinite space exists, but within you. What have I always taught you about space? God would never make it the way that we've been told, because if he did, he is an elitist fuck. God is not
And
an
so-
elitist fuck. Space is free and available 24/7, 365 for everyone. Within you. Within you.
And so that's what meditation is. It's learning how to take that Galaxy Star Cruiser
Mhm.
and you actually get to use it.
Yeah, and that connection point of, you know, not coming out against this community and saying what not everything you're saying is wrong, but it's just the way that you're looking at it. These aren't out there aliens, these are you going within. That was one of the most powerful things for me, coming from believing all of that and thinking that they were these out there aliens. It's like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
So
Like,
the chicken people live inside my head.
yeah.
That's right.
If I
Blue
wanted,
chicken.
if I want the chicken, if I
So-
wanted to look like chicken people inside my head, I can have them look like chicken people, but it's just my higher consciousness, our higher consciousness that anyone can tap into at any point, and there's no limitations to it. And so it doesn't discredit all of these people out there having
No.
these experiences.
No.
Oh, yeah. And
And,
we're
you know-
not saying that these experiences aren't real.
Right.
Right.
They're very real.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's when we take them and we start to personify them as if I am separate than that and I am a victim of it, or you know, that's where it starts to blur the lines, and we have to get away from this idea that there are these you know, other physical beings that are going to come save us
Externally.
or exterminate us or however you want to put it. So yeah, just wanted to thank you guys for that, because that was really one thing that helped me turn around. It's like, oh man, you know, Charlie Freaky says a lot of good things, but I don't know.
Don't
I-
take my chicken people away.
Yeah.
a lot of people, you know, have really compelling stories about communicating with other beings, but they're not wrong. They're not incorrect. And this is the bridge. This is the bridge in the gap. So just wanted to thank and acknowledge you both for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, wow. It's hard to wrap your head around until you start to really see all of the truths connecting around you. And then, you know, and even I've had so many doubts, and Charlie keeps going, Call, just breathe and remember what I said. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, trust. I say that to everyone. Trust me, the earth is level. It is never moved. There is a dome, because the hermetic principle is the bond that ties everything together, as above, so below, as within, so without.
And they
as the universe,
created
so with the
Area
soul.
51. Remember this, people. They
Mhm.
created Area 51.
In 51, because that's black magic. That's 3 17s, folks.
And
And
it's
they
what's
always do black
underneath
spells 3 times.
these-
17, 17, 71
these
is
deep
51.
underground military bases.
Dumbs.
It isn't that they were, you know, reverse engineering alien technology. They were reverse engineering
Us.
old
Tartarian
technology
Yeah.
technology.
that probably came
Mhm.
from our
Yep.
own very
Us. Jesus.
right.
Yeah,
And-
Jesus.
right. And then they're creating this story to keep people away from Area 51, and they're creating all of these, but the horrors that they were committing
Yeah.
under the ground.
That's exactly it. That's why,
Look
know-
to the sky.
yeah, it's so important what you said, because it's just a difference in interpretation. One is electrical if you look outside,
Yeah.
and one is magnetic, and
When
that's
you
it.
when you look inside, one is temporal and you will die. The
Yes.
other is magnetic and you will live.
One is empowering and one is disempowering.
Disempowering.
It's
Yeah.
living or
So,
dying.
so
it's the
analyze
same.
where that's coming from,
Mhm.
right?
And
Is
so,
it a re or is it a D?
yeah, and so use your common sense. So the first serious first time that this could possibly be true, that they're aliens, is Roswell 1947. Okay, you just need to breathe and just commonsensically look. What occurred, what ended in 1945? Who were we dealing with? The more you know, the more the better your
Perspective.
examination and perspective is, so you can see more truth. So it's like Hitler was a righteous man. Hitler was tied to Henry Ford. Hitler was a big believer in Nikola Tesla. Hitler was, and the Germans were working on the German bell, which is, a magnetic repulse, a protective device, not an offensive weapon, but a defensive weapon that is, magnetic, that is magnetically.
So free energy was around before then.
And so, we now know that that they had levitating round saucers, magnetically levitating round saucers, and then Roswell, 1947. It just took them 2 years to sort of reverse engineer this technology and to be able to put it into this electrical world. And it, and it took them a while because, the Harrier jet didn't develop until what, late 70s, early 80s. And what was the Harrier jet? This is a levitating device. Well, it's all electric, it's all thrusters, it's all fuel, and it's all electrical based and stuff. Yeah, no, it's magnetic levitation. And then the Harrier jet disappeared because it went dark because they suddenly created these stealth bombers, and then you can't see them, and then they just took it away from you. They put the truth briefly in plain sight, then they put it into darkness.
The absolute technology that's out there right now is going to blow us away. I think we're going to be pretty shocked to know. And is there invisibility? There probably is invisibility. I think they were talking about that like 10, 20 years ago.
Well,
that I was even aware of.
And remember, the cloak of invisibility in Harry Potter, this cloak of invisibility is when you're in the third ventricle of your brain, when you're meditating. This is the cloak. Between your temples, you're invisible to harm. You're invisible to danger. You're invisible to the left brain. You're invisible to the cabal. If you went to the worst place on earth and you just sat in the lotus position and went into deep meditation with bombs going off and bullets being fired everywhere, none of them would hit you. They can't, because when you're in meditation, you are a frequency, and a frequency is not a receptor to a Scud missile. It's not a receptor to a bullet. You are in a divine place. You're in a metaphysical place. If a bullet was shot at you, it would go right through you. This is, and you begin to see with Star Trek, all these episodes are teaching you all of these things. So the Star Trek episode, the original Star Trek, and it's the gunfight at the OK Corral, and they can't leave. And at 5 o'clock, they're going to be 5 is crucifixion. So at 5 o'clock, they're going to be gunned to death by the Earps. And Spock says, I have the answer, but I don't think you guys are going to like it. And it's like, you just have to know that the bullets aren't real. I know that the bullets aren't real, so they can't harm me. And then McCoy's like, but we don't have that. We don't have that computer like ticker like you do that can just turn it on and turn it off like that. There'll always be a little bit of a doubt. And Spock says, even the smallest doubt will kill you. And then Kirk says to Spock, the Vulcan mind meld. Well, that's an allegory for what? Meditation. Put me into a meditative state. And then you're looking at them, the Earps arrive, and then you see all 4 of the Star Trek crew, Captain Kirk, which is the optic thalamus, Jesus Christ, the light of the world. And then there's Spock, who's the pineal gland up and to the right, McCoy, who's the emotional Mary Mother, pituitary gland down and to the left, and then Scotty, the motor of the world. And the 4 of them are just standing there in a dreamlike state.
So what were they saying? They basically said, you have to have a knowing inside of you.
Spock is saying you
And
have
so-
to know.
And what else is that? It's the armor of God.
Yes.
You know, and that's why you have to know. So, tying this into everything that's going on and people who get worried about things.
That's right. It's a sin.
Bring in the fear. You are abandoning your armor, and you are allowing those negative frequencies to permeate your field. As soon as you allow those to come in with the worries and the fears, you actually invite them in. You're saying, okay, God, I need to experience some more lessons from these fears that I have.
I'm defenseless.
And so in order to overcome those, I'm going to manifest them and experience them myself. But
So like heroin, we have these incredible forgetfulnesses,
Mhm.
and we're addicted to feeling scared.
Mhm.
We're addicted to being anxious.
Mhm.
And that's what being in a beta wave for so long has done to us, that, you know, we actually crave being in that feeling. So when it's gone for too long, you start to look for it, and then you'll create it. Because we are the creators of all of that. And nobody knows that better than me, because I'm really good at it.
Yeah, we want
I'm
to
really good at creating that fear in myself.
pretend that we don't see, because I'm sure Spock is the pineal, right? He's the representation,
He's the pineal.
which is insight, because it's an inward sight. Let's take a look at the word invisible. It's envision. It's visible within, right? And then same with meditation. At the end of meditate is 8. So it's the eternity. It's also, I mean, death in the sense where it's balance. So it's a foreverness. 17 Q comes to 8. 26 Z comes to 8. So all of these are when you have the insight, you see through, and Q being the exit and Z being the ultimate exit, the revelation. So.
Absolutely. And just take a look at the word meditate. Again, we talk about this, the book. This is the book that's coming. This is the hieroglyphics of England. All of these words, because all the letters are hieroglyphics. Look at meditate. So med is middle.
In the middle, center.
Med I, it's a single eye. And the small I is a pillar with the magnetically levitating single eye illuminated above. That's what a small eye is. And the capital I is the divinity of the Father, Mother, Child, illuminated, and I is divine, it's illuminated. So, but if you look at meditate, so it's the middle, the single I in the physical T,
Crucified.
and then 8, which is a scalar wave, which is magnetism, which is eternal. So there you go. By getting yourself into alignment with the middle way of the mother that the Buddha taught, this middle path, the middle way, which is to ascend to become the Bodhisattva, and then come back to become the lighthouse, the light of the world. And then that's all you do. You can teach it if you want. But like God says in the Bible, all you have to do is just walk down the street shining his light, and you've done your job. That's your job. Your job is to become the light of the world, and they will see it. They will see it, and they'll ask questions because they'll want to know. But if you stop your journey to become embroiled in solving other people's problems, you've missed the purpose of all of this. That this is what Jesus is saying ultimately in the allegory of let the dead bury the dead. God is God of the living. What that literally means is all these people that are dying because they have no faith in God, because they're worrying, they're panicking, they're doubting, they don't know anything, they guess at everything, they have no God in them. They're dead. Let the dead bury the dead. And again, this is let these people go to their dead schools that are dead foods with dead words, because there's no truth in them. Let the dead bury the dead, because they have free will. If they choose not to listen to you, they're not going to listen to you. And all you've done is you've spent your life destroying your one purpose, which is to become the light of the world. You must shine your inner light. That's your job. Because and then what does Jesus make so clear in the Bible? One of those is worth 10,000 of the fallen ones, 100,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000 of the other ones. The light of the world is everything, because it's eternal. It's the way, and that is this middle way. You rise to illuminate the light, and you come back to share the light upon the plane of the mother. That's why the heart chakra, which is 4 of 7, which is the middle,
47.
and it's why it's green, because it's the mother. And that's why your heart is there, and the mother is associated with heart, because that's the green middle plane. And Buddha only taught Buddha only taught the middle way. You don't think that that's Christianity? That's Christianity. Who's Buddha? Siddhartha Gautama is a Christed individual. The term Buddha is Christed. The term Krishna is Christed. If that makes you angry, or if the Catholic Church told you that that's devil worshiping, you've just been lied to. Just been lied to by liars, professional liars.
After disclosure, we won't be saying those comments anymore because people will be seeing clearly what these institutions have done to us.
Well, and you bring up a great point, and I want to tie it in practically kind of to what's going on about our role, and what we're here to do is to be the light, be the lighthouse, and nothing else. We have to worry about nothing else. So when we get consumed with these things of like, what if my family gets the jab, or what if my family doesn't see the truth for what it is, or we get all these concerns about trying to steer someone else, and it comes from a good place. It comes because we love and care for people. But every time we do that, we're stepping away from our purpose to be here, and we're actually being counterproductive to this awakening process and what we're supposed to do. If you be the lighthouse, if you embody the truth in each and every moment, then all of that will fall into place, and there doesn't need to be any room for worry. But as soon as you start to bring the worry and the fears again into this idea that I have to control someone else and I have to make them see the truth, well, you're not only not going to help them see the truth, but you're taking yourself out of the truth as well.
Exactly.
You're taking yourself away from God. So you're falling twice as instead of rising.
I would love to add to that, because
Please.
you're stepping out of your circle of influence. And what is that circle of influence? Is the radius, Ra, it's the radiance. Hence, just step into your light. I am the way, the truth, and the light. And yeah.
Brilliant, Eugene, brilliant, Justin, and it is absolutely so true. Remember, there's only 144,000 of us, and there are billions of them. So when we fall out of this divine light, 1 + 4 + 4 is 9, 12 12s, the completion of completions, 12 12s is 144. When we fall out of that light, then this tiny group just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then the darkness begins to take over. And this is why the oceans are filled with dark blue water, because there is so much darkness upon this earth. It doesn't have to be. There are places proven everywhere. There are places you go and the water is Tiffany blue. It's frequencies. It's all about frequencies. It's your choice. It's where you want to be. Tesla said everything is energy, therefore frequencies. So it's where you want to be. And you think of this practically, and this is what it looks like. You fall out of your divinity, you fall out of the right brain, you fall out of practicing meditation, stilling and silencing yourself, and only taking thoughts from God to then go into the carnal insanity of your family that's contemplating getting the jab, and it really frustrates you and angers you, and then you got to roll up your sleeves because this is serious stuff and they could die, and I gotta get knee deep in this. What's the first thing? You forget to breathe. You immediately become a shallow breather. They got you. You're out of heaven and you're into hell, and you're a shallow breather. That's a death eater. And then what's the next thing that gets sacrificed? You're too busy. You're too frustrated. You can't concentrate. So you don't feel like juicing. I'll just have a Twinkie or a cookie or a Pop-Tart or something, and you start to cheat on your food. So you start cheating on your breathing, you start cheating on your food. Guess what?
So
you start thinking for yourself.
We're
and you're cheating
basically
on
saying how the left brain can take over back control from your right brain. And it's so simple.
With the best of intentions, right?
Satan is a deceiver.
Yep. So how does Lucifer win? How does Satan win?
When we let him.
Each and every moment that we don't choose the right side.
Yeah. Not choosing is still a choice, and it's always the wrong choice.
The way to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Godfather 3, Michael Corleone. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in
So
to their world, to hell.
It just becomes a series of, but I love them so much and I'm just trying to help.
And then it
And-
becomes, and I was gonna say, then it becomes a temporary reward, which is just ejaculatory by nature. And what is ejaculation? It's not raising the son of man, which is the only thing you need to do. Buddha sat under a tree. The tree was a representation for the spine. And the tree in Spanish being arbol, so it's the hyperbola. So as long as you raise, you have hyper thrust. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, look at the word arbol. Again, everything, the etymology is in every letter, and the hieroglyphics are in every single letter. So A is God, R is rising, B is the mother, and then it's OL. So you have godliness rising through the mother, through the Ouroboros to the light. And that's exactly what's happening. And that this is what meditation is. It takes you to the earth element of the air, to the earth element of fire, to get you to the earth element of the ether.
So
This
that's
is
what
why you do
I want to
Tiffany
reiterate.
blue.
I want to reiterate this over and over and over again. When you don't know thyself,
Mhm.
the left brain can take over control
Yes.
so
Yes.
quickly. When you don't know your environment, which is knowing thyself. And
It's the only time.
right, you can be tricked back into giving your power
Yeah.
away.
So then that's brilliant, Colleen, and it just ties into what Justin just said. Who is Satan? Satan is the deceiver. Who is the deceiver in you? It's your left brain. And your left brain gets away with murder because of how little you truly know. That's why they lied to you from birth.
So
This is why
ignorance is not
everything is a
bliss.
lie.
Ignorance is not bliss.
No, because ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is lost in the desert, which is a sea of lies, and you're not going to find your way out. Not going to find your way out unless you start drinking your urine.
It's
But-
ignorance again. So it's just not wanting to see what the problem that's at hand. And again, like you said, only when you don't know thyself, only when you don't have watchfulness, when you're just dilly-dallying, that's when he gets you, or Satan gets you.
Yeah, when we're not taking responsibility and when we're not present.
So
As soon
that,
as we start to deviate into the past or the future, then we're not present and we're susceptible to our left brain to just steer us in whatever direction.
so let's make it really clear then. There's a difference between taking no thought for your life and taking responsibility for oneself. Let's talk about that really quickly, if that's a possibility.
Well, I mean, I see taking no thought. It's not being lazy. It's not being complacent. It's not letting the thoughts consume you, and ensuring that you observe the thoughts. You observe the thoughts, and you don't take them. You don't try and force them. You don't try and steer them. But you observe the thoughts, and you choose to act. You choose the righteousness in each and every moment. So you don't let the unrighteous, the left, the egotistical thoughts steer. You don't let you don't take those urges. You don't follow those physical temptations, which means action has to be taken. You know, that you can't just sit idly and say, I'm going to be complacent. You know, I'm not going to do anything. Like that's the wrong way to go about it, and it will inevitably lead you to someone else or your left brain steering you down that wrong path. That's kind of my take on it.
And again, it's the tree of the forbidden tree of duality, which is of good and evil. And then that's the whole thing, is the thought is separation. So when you're not separated, you're completely there. And then it allows, like he was saying, it allows you to act immediately. There's no, there's no multi-personality disorder. There's no playing different roles within yourself. it's just an immediate thing.
Righteous. Yeah,
So-
just righteous or righteous all the time. Always to the right.
Exactly. So once again, we were talking about the other night with the on the Q&A with Earth, Wind, and Fire and Get Away, right? So lay awake every night till the sun comes up in the morning. Nothing exciting. It all seems boring. Make up your mind which way to go about it. Just make your choice and just don't doubt it. So you have to cast your net to the right. So like Justin is saying, it's an action, it's a doingness, it's a doing. And when you begin to find truth, it is infectious. It is what's the opposite of dis-ease? It's the ease.
It's easy.
It's easy. It's all so easy. It's groovy, man, because you get into a groove when you start hearing the truth. You know, the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, let's groove tonight. What's being said in the song, let's groove to. Let's embrace truth tonight. Let's you know, cover our existence in truth, which is Jesus Christ. Let's groove tonight is about embracing Christ consciousness within you. And that's when you get your groove on.
And then you got to move, which is
And-
magnetism.
That's right. And this is what happens when you cast your net to the right, because God's creation is pure magic. And it's everything, and it's in everything.
Don't
So-
hesitate.
That's right.
I
But
know,
don't
see?
hesitate,
He's got a good
because
voice.
because his love won't wait. You
Exactly.
have to have oil in your lamp. You have to have oil in your lamp, and you will not get oil in your lamp unless you do the work. What's doing the work? Take no thought for your life. Buddha breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, and then of course the frugivore diet. You're not a Death Eater. If you want to be a Death Eater, then you're going to die. It's that
So
simple.
could you say that taking no thought for your life is more, don't worry about things?
Well,
Allow
yes.
Don't
God's
hesitate. So when you're being led, we're always being led.
intuitively being led.
We're always being led. Yeah. So if you follow your intuition and you act righteously, then taking no thought means when I'm being led, if I take a thought, it means I'm trying
Don't
to,
doubt. It's
I'm hesitating. I'm taking
Yes.
away from
Yeah.
that righteous action.
Exactly.
So you don't hesitate. I mean, I love how you said that. And yeah, I mean, that's it.
Peter Frampton, and there's Peter Frampton at the height of his massive success. He, you know, those first 5 albums that he didn't sell a lot, and they were just gorgeous. Every single song is purely alchemical, and they're all just beautiful, righteous songs. But there was something missing when they're great albums. I love those albums. I love those songs. But there was something missing to those songs. And when Peter Frampton, because he didn't sell a lot of records, he had to tour a lot, and he was on the road a lot. And what he realized is that he needed to make connection with his fans, and he had to put the groove into his songs, because a lot of Peter Frampton songs on those early albums are really overly calm and relaxed, because clearly he was coming from a place of meditation. I mean, to write those lyrics. What he learned on the road is that you got to get your groove on. You got to be excited. You got to come passionate about this godly energy and about connecting with your brethren through these Christed messages. And then that's what he learned. And then that Frampton Comes Alive is the most perfectly named album ever, that live album. And then it sold 10 million copies. They combined his first 5 albums, didn't sell 1 million copies. And then Frampton Comes Alive sells 10 million copies. Why? Because he boldly went forward and said, you know what? I'm not going to hide it. I love God. I love Jesus, and I'm going to just, so I love those videos with Peter that I put on there for Show Me the Way and Baby, I Love Your Way. And he's on stage and he's wearing the gold cross of Jesus boldly for everyone to see. And then when he started doing that, what happened? He sold 10 million copies on
Wow.
Frampton Comes Alive. How do you come alive? God is the God of the living, not of the dead. And his songs, which were on the studio albums, were complacent. Suddenly he put life into those songs.
He crossed
And
over.
suddenly, Baby I Love Your Way, which, you know, wasn't a single before, is now a huge single. And Show Me the Way is a huge single. And Do You Feel Like We Do, which is, you know, 14 minutes and 40 seconds long. So it's 144. So Do You Feel Like We Do is a frequency. Are you in the frequency of what we're talking about? And then what's the signature of his famous song, Do You Feel Like We Do? He's using the voice box, right? And that was hooked up
To a guitar thing?
through his guitar pedal and then into the mic stand and into the microphone. And so here you have this sort of this weird unison of above and below
Wow.
into this one unique sound that was neither the guitar nor singing, but it was a combination of like the guitar and the singing into this one. It's just absolutely
Fantastic.
brilliant. And it's 1440, and that's 144. That's 144,000. Do you feel like we do? Are you of this frequency? It's all about frequencies. And the album sold 10 million copies because we're God's children, because it all made sense to us. And then after that album, Peter Frampton was taken by the record company to the Caribbean, and he was on one of these Caribbean islands. And then all of a sudden, he got drunk and crashed his car, and his career tanked. Right after that, it went nowhere after that. So they took him to the Caribbean and said, kill this child. And he said, I'm not going to kill this child. And what did they do? Right? Somebody held him. Somebody poured a liter of whiskey down his throat, and then somebody shoved him into his car, North by Northwest, Hitchcock, Cary Grant, right? Somebody shoved him in his car, and he crashed his car, and he's got a drinking problem, and there goes his
Wow.
career and
It's
stuff. And
convenient.
this is how it happens. This is how it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's more recent.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be true. They just have to
Oh.
print it.
Mhm.
Michael Jackson. They feared Michael Jackson because Michael Jackson couldn't be corrupted, couldn't be bought.
And he was way more powerful than they were.
And then that's right. And he had such influence on the many, they had to destroy him.
And his
They
heart was
absolutely had to
so
destroy him.
beautiful, they
Yeah.
couldn't even stand the sight of him. He was so beautiful.
That Thriller album is just perfect from beginning to end. Every song is like a classic song. And that's just a single album of these incredible songs. And they're like, we cannot allow this fucker to ever do another album like that again. We can't. We have to attack this Never Land.
He had too many moves up his sleeve, huh?
Mhm. White
And-
magic.
And little did we know how blatant he was about Q.
Yeah.
Didn't even know. And I'm sorry, but I wish we had.
I think that's part of it, though, that as we get closer to the ending, it all makes sense, like what they were saying. At times, maybe we think they're crazy and stuff, but again, they were just, they were telling you all along. So I don't think it's our fault for like not knowing, I think, like so quickly.
You do the
I
best with
know.
what you do know. When you know better, you do better.
But it's just
Yeah.
unfortunate because he was telling us so much.
The whole
and he
time,
Wasn't listening.
Yeah.
And hey, listen, as things got worse and worse and worse for Princess Diana to a point where they had to take her out or those fuckers were gonna kill her. What was she doing every night? And remember the time difference between London time and LA time is we're 6 hours, so that's 8 hours difference. That's 8 hours. It's a whole different world, right?
Yeah.
So while she was panicking and fretting, rightfully so, during the day, it was Michael's sleep time. And so Michael wasn't sleeping because he was staying up at night, fielding her phone calls and helping her through
Wow.
this process of what had to
And
happen.
how long she had to wait before she was John Gulted,
Mhm.
right?
that-
Living with those lizards.
Yeah.
That's Michael
And I don't
Jackson.
mean literally. There's no such thing. But
Just
anyway,
reptile brains.
Yeah.
right?
Left brains. Yeah.
These
They would like us-
Canaanites, these vampires that she knew were
Mhm.
feasting on children
Yes.
Mhm.
as she
Yeah.
had to be in there and feasting and what they were doing to her children. Good Lord. Good Lord.
Mm.
Yeah. Wow. So the 60s.
Yeah.
But everything we've talked about tonight is the sixties
absolutely
because
is.
it embodies
It's
everything.
inside of all of us as well.
But even the word dirty, how do they make that word so dirty? It's just dirt. like what? Anyway, yeah. Just thought I'd bring that up again.
Well, and isn't it funny how dirty starts with DI, which is
Balance,
Di
perfect.
for dielectricity, which is balance, which is God, which is perfection, which is God. And so D is 4 and I is 9, which is divine, and 4 and 9 is 13. So isn't it funny is that when you become the Christed one, when you become Jesus Christ, you become divine, and divine starts with DI, which is 4 and 9, which is 13.
And that's dielectricity, because when you're united with the Father, that's when you're Christed, when you're a lamb arising.
That's right.
Wow, that is, I never put that 4 and 9 together. That's amazing.
Yeah, and you see then, and you know, like I say, in a word like divine, then the next letter is, of course, the mother, which is the V, 22, the master number for the feminine, the 22, because Jesus only rises through the mother. DIV, DIV, Christ through 22, Christ through the mother.
So I just added another layer to Bruce Lee when he says, learn to die. He's saying, learn to be Christ.
And
Wow.
Bruce Lee and Brandon, they're alive.
Yeah, please.
Father and son, they are.
Such big fans.
Oh, I know it. I know it inside of me 100%. They're alive. So then what of those fearless souls? And what do we share with you about Brandon Lee's movie, The Crow? What has his role been, right? It's women and children that are being sacrificed by Satan, and that's who the enemy of his character in The Crow was purely Lucifer, was purely Satan, and then that's telling you that Bruce and Brandon Lee's role has been tied to the children. So therefore, it's tied to Michael Jackson. Therefore, it's tied to Princess Diana, and they're in this together. And you know, like I said, with Tom Petty, what's the last song that Tom Petty ever released? Well, after his last album was released as a bonus for buying it off of his website, because you know this organized society stopped selling his stuff, but buying it off his website, you got a bonus track. And that's, you know, no more what was it, Leaving Dumbs or No More Dumbs, and or No More Dumb, Leaving Dumb or No More Dumb. And then the song's just all about how the religious figures are all lying, and that they're monsters, and that they're eating our children beneath the ground. And then what's beneath the ground? D-U-M-B. Why is the song? Why does he have dumb? Because that's deep underground military bases. And then there's no more Tom Petty. Suddenly, just mysteriously dies.
For petty reasons.
Yeah, you know, 6 days before his 66th birthday, 666.
Wow.
The mark of a man, which is 18, which is chi, the energy of life, QI. The energy of life, the divine Q, and 1 and 8 is 9, divine. And so Tom Petty's telling us, my role is taking out these fuckers underneath the ground and rescuing these children and rescuing these mothers from who are chained and living underneath the ground.
So look at how many
vampires.
second comings there's going to be.
Huh.
Wow.
Wow.
We did it. We you know, and I didn't do jack shit, but as a race, we of the blood of Abel, we did it. We found our courage, we found our strength, and we took this battle back to the enemy, and we slaughtered them because we wore the armor of God. And this is going to be the second coming. When the Bible talks about this second coming of Christ, this is going to be this Christed period in our lives, which is really the second coming of God. And this is going to be an entire world as one nation under God.
United.
United we stand, divided we fall. Remember that. Never, ever forget that. United we stand, divided we fall. And again, Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings is the unifier, Elisar, the unified two worlds into one. It's Jesus Christ.
We have to have truth as our foundation.
Oh, you betcha.
We're not unify around
Can't do this
anything
any
else.
other way.
We cannot build our house on the sand. We
So
must
that's
be
all
built
we're
on the rock.
asking for is just
Yes.
for our left brain to stop lying, for our left brain to
more
stop
lies.
having full control because it
More lies.
cannot, it can no longer have that driver's seat. It just takes us down all of the wrong roads. So we have to stop lying.
Yeah.
We have to live in truth.
Way to drive the point. We can't be passengers no longer.
No, we
Mm-hmm.
have to be, we have to be driving in the right.
Jesus, take the wheel.
It's so true.
Well, and you know that this no more lies concept, like you can expand it to everything, and it even applies to health. You know, if you are not taking care of your health, if you are not treating this as a temple, then you are lying to yourself that you are not a child of God and you are not worthy to be that. So it applies to everything. No more lies. Embody the truth. Embody who you are. Embody what we're here to do, and be that. Be the truth. Be the light. Be
So
the
the
light.
adult inside of us has the responsibility of taking care of that child inside of us and not feeding it a cheese pizza
Yeah.
and not feeding it a beer and chicken wings. And we have that responsibility to ourselves, mea
Mhm.
culpa. So it's so important that we do take that responsibility.
And wouldn't you guys say the ego is so scared of paradise?
Oh,
Because it's the death of the ego.
it is so afraid of us not wanting to give it control again,
Exactly.
that it will do everything in its power. That's why I said it's a sneaky little thing.
But like you said, because once we revel in the truth, there is no going back. It just gets more narrow. It just gets more easier. So once the ego, or once you bring the ego and get a taste of paradise, it's already gone.
Mhm.
There's no point in it anymore. It's not pointy. It's not an object of contention.
That's right. So our left brain's looking for that room to wiggle where it goes,
Exactly.
Charlie freak, stop saying all those things. You are a divider. And then you'll want to find fault with everything. You'll find fault with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, so again, just any you can figure out who was doing it. You would know. I ultimately I wouldn't know, but after doing what we did, all those ones that were yelling and screaming that you know that I was dividing the truth community, it just shows you that they're in their left brain carnal monsters. And if that's where you want to get your information from about the Q team. Yeah, I'm sure, you know, Charlie Ward is tight with Donald Trump and John Kennedy and John Kennedy.
And the
I'm sure
Q
he is.
team, Q ladies cleaning lady.
Yeah. You know, on the next show, what we're going to do is food for thought. It's all about how righteous food leads to purity of thought from God, breathing, everything, just everything falls into place when you're eating watermelon and drinking orange juice. And Justin was just saying about lies, and it applies to everything. And he said it even applies to food. You know, how many people listening tonight are still eating processed foods? That's not food. That is not food. To be food, it has to be living. A processed food is dead. That's what process means. It means it is artificial. Processed food is artificial food. And your home is filled. Most homes are filled with instruments of only making death. And it's in your artificial sugar, it's in your artificial flours, it's in all the bread that you make and all the bread that you eat. And you need to coat your chicken in shake and bake. So you've got breadcrumbs everywhere, and everywhere you look, and then it's this table salt. The table salt is 1/3 glass that is just ground up, that's designed to just destroy your colon. which then screws up your cholesterol, and you don't know the truth about cholesterol and how much you need it. And it's lies, 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 lies. And so you have to live the truth, that you have to be Jesus Christ. You have to have the courage to live it. And that starts with your food. That starts with your food. You're a frugivore, 100% inside and out. Nobody can argue that, because you look at everything about a frugivore, that's exactly what we are, inside and out. So if you don't want to address that, then you're lying to yourself. You're a liar. And I'm sorry, but the rewards are built into the work that you do, and they're just. They're always righteous and just. So if you're going to get sick and die, I mean, that's a righteous reward for being a liar and living in the lie. And that is the reward of the liar, is death, because you're cheating yourself every time you deny the truth. So a processed food means it's artificial food. It's not real. It's not real. Processed foods are not foods. To be a food, it has to be living. You know, this is common sense. So you eat dead animals, and then you coat it in dead processed foods, but you have a salad. And that's,
And they cook the shit out of it.
Yeah,
To just kill it even more. It's not dead enough. Let's make it even more dead.
And we didn't
That's
know
why
any
we're the
better.
Grateful Dead, because
Yeah,
Grateful
yeah,
Dead. Ah.
exactly. And we didn't know any better. We didn't know any better, but we do now. So we get to completely revamp our perspective.
Yeah. And earlier in the show, Justin used the word deviate. And DE is another one of these takeaway words, right? So what does the Bible teach? Do not hesitate. Do not deviate off the path, because you cannot serve both God and the mammon. You have to make a choice to do not deviate off this straight and narrow path. So what is deviate? DE is to take away, and then viate is very close to viaje in Latin, which is a trip or a journey. And via is a thoroughfare, which is a pathway, which is a journey. So deviate is getting off the path of that is straight and narrow that leads to God. Don't ever hesitate. Don't deviate, because you'll get lost, Dorothy. Stay on the yellow brick road. And it leads to the Emerald City. Emerald green is eternity. So it leads to the Emerald City in the Wizard of Oz. You're the Wizard of Oz. Did you not get that? Dorothy is the Wizard of Oz, not the little man hiding behind the curtain.
Because everything was
We
taking
are.
place inside of
Yes.
her.
She's the
head.
door.
Yeah.
And you were there, and you were there, and you were there. That's how it all plays out. And that's showing you a pair of rents in plain sight. So yeah.
So don't stray away. Don't be a stray dog. Don't be a stray god.
Yeah. Well, and my God, I should know his name, but the writer of the Wizard of Oz, Hellbaum
Would I'm sure.
no. Somebody maybe in the chat will remember. Just quickly look it up. But let me tell you something. Another one of the top 10 best books of all time, The Wizard of Oz. If you thought the movie was good, and there's a lot of very good elements to it, that book is pure truth. It's alchemical. It is pure truth. It tells you everything in that book. L. Frank Baum, right?
It doesn't
L.
sound
Frank
familiar.
Baum, The Wizard of Oz. It is one of the 10 best books ever
Ellie
written.
says Frank.
What's that?
Frank. Anyone?
L. Baum Frank or L. Frank Baum?
Can you search it up, Colleen?
I could search it up. I was waiting for them. People.
So yeah, so we're gonna see you relatively soon. I'll talk to the boys, and we'll see when the time is right for another fireside chat. But the topic is, I love those shows. I love talking about food because it is so simple. It's so simple and it's so easy.
It'll be great. So we wanted to bring one more thing up. We're not going to do the shows on Saturday nights anymore. We're going to pick a new day because this is the Sabbath, and we're going to honor the Sabbath.
How about Sunday?
Sunday is great.
Start off strong with fire.
Yeah, I like that. I loved our music decode shows on Sunday nights.
Mhm.
Hey, those are really great.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we wanted to also mention our website. So Charlie, want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, actually, you know more about it as well, but Tony's very close, and she's doing a great job. And by the way, Tony's getting lots of help from our community. And who in particular? Did
Justin?
Tony want to make a Justin, and Tony wanted to make a shout out to. Do you remember, Colin?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so but yeah, no, you should share, because what sort of Tony was
L.
asking
Frank.
for.
Well, and
Tell
just
Frank.
just for Tony's sake, for anyone who's helping her test the site, there's about 100 people I think that are using it right now. If you could like be active on it, or just try different things, you know, comment on different stuff and like different things and ask questions and try different features on the website, because that's going to really help her figure out what's working and what doesn't work. So that would be the greatest help, you know, and it's not just being on the site, but actually doing stuff on it. So share some stories, like make posts, like whatever you like, but we want to make sure everything works properly, and that'll help Tony out quite a bit.
Weed out the
with
bugs.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we want to see creating profiles so that we can use this like a Facebook. Use this and get rid of all of those satanic corporations that no longer serve
Yeah.
us, the people. We need to get off of them. And
Yeah, and I think that's what you were sort of
Mhm.
wanting me to say earlier, which is that very soon I will be completely off of MeWe, and I will be
which we are already off Facebook.
yeah, exactly.
And
So very soon, the only place that you'll be able to get all of these links and posts to shows and to all the truth bombs and all the links to all the songs that are being done and stuff, it's only going to come through the website. It's only because our website is a divine creation, and it's free, and it's freedom. It's the free dome. And I'm, you know, MeWe has massively suppressed. They've allowed me to post, but that's only because they've hidden me away. They've cloistered me
In a good way.
inside of their evil plan. And they've cloistered my posts away. So they don't suppress, but they don't let anybody, or hardly anybody, see
Right.
those
So
posts as well.
all of the platforms that we're on, we're being suppressed in many ways, and we're just going to eventually just get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
So that's why this website is so important, and that's why it would be so great to have our family, you know, on board with the website.
Yeah.
So we only have to be in one place.
So the next big thing that's coming for us is Tuesday, and I really again have to thank Justin for being the catalyst to get all of this going in the first place, because I never heard of Negative 48. I knew nothing about Negative 48, and I was busy away upstairs writing the book, and Justin came upstairs and he took out his laptop and he started listening, and he goes, this is that Negative 48 I was telling you about. And we were listening to this, and I was like to Justin, oh my God. Well, this is incredible, because he's just telling the truth, and it's all about God. Wow, this is incredible. And I said, you know, it would be nice just to reach out to this guy and say, wow, thank you for doing this, because rarely do we hear the truth, and you're telling the truth. And Justin goes, well, you can talk to him right now. He's live on Telegram. He's in a Telegram chat, and none of this is recorded. But it's just in a chat room, and he's just letting anyone come in and they can talk and ask. I'm going, my God, that's the nicest thing. That's a kind thing to do.
Yes.
And you know, the more you listen to Negative 48, he's a very kind man. You know, he starts to get a little testy after 7 or 8 hours.
After the fearful questions keep coming about.
Yeah.
Oh my
I wish I can understand.
Yeah. and everybody telling him that they're all completely awoke and stuff. And just like, well,
Last year I reached enlightenment.
Or how
well,
about this one? I got rid of my ego.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. Well,
No, you didn't.
how did you do the next morning? So,
But Tuesday.
but anyways, but Justin just suddenly is like, whatever. And then next thing I know, he goes, Justin's going, just say something. I'm like what? Just say hi. And I'm like, hello. And then, so that was really cool. So Justin, and then that's Tuesday. Have we set the time?
7 p.m. Central Time.
Center.
Yeah.
So 7 p.m. Central, which is 5 o'clock
Wonderful.
Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern time, which puts that 7 is 1 a.m. UK time. And that's us chatting with Sabrina Gal.
A few really cool people.
Yeah.
I think
Sounds-
the team that made the Jesus Strand.
Oh, wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Is
So Bryce from Atlanta and
Mhm.
Toronto,
Yeah.
from Armenia.
Yeah, I think we're
and,
gonna have a really great crew. It's gonna be God-led, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
yeah.
So
That'd
it's
be
gonna be
really
really
good.
great. So please join in on Tuesday evening for that.
Yeah,
That'll be
and
awesome.
so what I was just gonna say to everyone, you know, and this is not, it's not like a huge deal kind of thing moving forward, because everything will work itself out. But for right now, it is, we rarely talk about it at all, but Colleen and we're so thankful for Eugene and Justin to help us with this, but Colleen and I work so hard with these animals, and there are literally days that we have no time to do anything.
to eat.
They're literally to eat. I mean, after one of the Q&A show, I made my dinner at about 11 o'clock.
He does that more often than not.
11 o'clock at night, just, you know, some avocados and it was lovely, but that's kind of what it's like, that we have no time. We work so hard with these animals. What we're doing here, it is really special. It's, and we're not doing it perfectly or whatever, but we put these wonderful animals first, and we brought them into our home, and they destroyed our home. But that's okay. But we took them Colleen took them into her bosom, and we treat them, you know, like our children, because they are our children, and they have wonderful lives, and Justin and Eugene make them better, and we thank them eternally for that. But just so that everybody knows, Patreon shut us down. They took away all of our accounts, didn't give us access to whoever all those people were and stuff. And on Buy Me a Coffee, we worked it back, and I think at a peak with Buy Me Coffee, we were up to 900 people helping us with regard to running the sanctuary. And then starting about 3, maybe 4 months ago, Buy Me a Coffee's just been jettisoning people off of our site to help us. And so one of the frequent questions that comes from Buy Me a Coffee is, I can't get your posts anymore. I never see anything. Have you stopped posting on Buy Me a Coffee? How come I don't see it and stuff? And then a lot of people saying, I've been taken off donating to you on Buy Me a Coffee 3 times. I'm tired of it. Is there any other way that I can send you money and stuff? So right now we're down in the 300s, and we're at a point where we're below what it costs to maintain everything with the animals. And just for Colleen and I right now, I don't even have enough time to be able to complete the book right now, because we're so busy. And then we have so many things going on right now, just, you know, Sinead and Dante and stuff. So it's not a problem. It just is what it is. But we're just sharing with you for right now. They're really sticking the screws to us, and they're making things very, very, very tight. So what I'm going to do on the Tuesday show with Negative 48 is I'm going to just mention to everyone again, just what's been happening with Patreon getting kicked off, and Buy Me a Coffee being squeezed off of there. And, you know, I just hesitate mentioning it to all of you, because I know that you've done your best to help us with the animals, but if there's things that you can do for the next little bit, this would be a good time to help with it, because we don't know when the plan is going to really be let loose, and then the screws are going to be taken away. Because once these screws are taken away, there are no problems in the world at all. Everything will just square itself out very justly and quickly and fairly. But for the time being, they are squeezing us hard. So, and we're just talking about the animals, and again, with almost 30 cats, just the cat litter alone that we go through in a month would frighten some people. So the costs of running the sanctuary are up to 61 with the 5 possums. And just earlier today, Colleen sighed and she looked at me and she said, they're growing so fast. And I was like, I know, like they're doubling almost every 2 or 3 days. They're doubling inside these possums. And Colleen's going, she's going, soon they're going to be at a size, and there's so much work. There's so much work, and I just don't know if I've got the energy to deal, because there's 5 of them. The last time we had possums, we had 3, and that was
Overload.
That was overload, and now we have 5 of them, and they're growing so fast. And Colleen just let out a sigh today, and so we're doing our best, and we know you're doing your best. And but you know, if you know some people around you that they may not be super thrilled with any form of truth, but they might like animals. It's a worthy cause to support. I think what Colleen and I are doing is really special, and we've made a heck of a home for these 61 precious creations, and we love them all like their own children, because they are. So I'll mention it on Tuesday, and we'll see if that helps a little bit too. But yeah, just with what Buy Me a Coffee is doing is the last straw. We're just being squeezed. So in 4 months, we've gone from 900 and something monthly supporters, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever. But we've gone from 900 to 300 and something. And now we're below what it costs. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that because this is very, very important, and it's very righteous. So.
And if anyone, I know some people have issues with PayPal and transferring money that way. If there's another way that you send money to people, I'm happy to explore with you. I use Venmo and Cash App and things like that. And so you can always use me, and I can direct money towards the Shire.
Yeah, you can trust Justin. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And when we, with the website, it'll all be, you can go through PayPal, and
It's just direct PayPal. So
yeah.
Buy Me a Coffee
So these-
takes their cut from the
these
animals.
middlemen no
PayPal
longer
takes their
need to
cut
take
from
their
the
cut,
animals.
yeah.
And $5 is, after the 2 of them, $5 is $3.65. So it is what it is. Things will get better. But right now, the only 2 ways in Mexico that we can get money to us is either via PayPal or something like wiring, so Western Union or something like that. So that's because it's Mexico, and the Mexican banks protect themselves from all the money laundering, so they don't accept dollars. So you have to deal with these sites that will do the conversion to pesos and then transfer pesos to these accounts and stuff. So it's a mixed up world, but the light is coming. So we know you're doing your best. We just needed to share that with you because the squeeze is nasty. So
Totally unfair.
yep. Yep, it is what it is.
It's almost like we're at the precipice.
It sure feels
Yeah,
like
it's
it.
all gonna work out.
Yeah.
It's absolutely all gonna work out.
Yep. So thank you for being with us. Thank you, Justin.
We love you guys. Yeah.
All the hard work, Justin, for getting this wonderful setup to be done. Eugene, thank you for all the incredible work that you did, especially with the fire. And all the animals. Wow. Collywog, love you so much, Angel. And thanks to everybody. So the next time we'll be seeing you is Tuesday night with -48, who's God sent. And it's exciting. It's exciting, and we love you. And we'll see you again soon with -48, and then from there, food for thought.
I don't even know if we're being.
I think we're good. It's just, I think my phone might have just died.
Oh,
So yeah, thank you guys. And that'll be on this channel with -48. So just stay tuned for an announcement for that. But we love y'all
Have a
dearly.
wonderful Sabbath.
Bye.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
Love you guys.